Why does it?
Indicates that our alternate Wayne Sherry was present, and I don't believe that's correct. And in line 190, it has Wayne making a motion, and if he wasn't here, he couldn't have made a motion.
Okay. According to my notes, it was Stacy that made the motion up for adjournment.
Okay.
So we'll change Wayne's name to Stacy.
And the other thing I'd like to call to your attention is when I made the motion to approve Tim Moore Catholic Cemeteries Association, I referenced this document that we were given, and I didn't read every word of it.
Okay,
And it's kind of missing. We usually have the full motion.
I
And
agree.
something is referenced, printed in there. And if you look at line 150, it has 8 commissioner. Yeah, number 8 twice in there. And then in 151, it has a number 8. So
Okay,
I don't know why in the middle of a motion, there would be a second. If it was me, I would strike in line 149, the word number. I'd strike 150 in its entirety. And I would correctly insert the motion that was made into the minutes, if you want the minutes to have the actual words of the motion.
with the missing section, I would like to see us not approve these minutes, have the corrections made, and then we will approve them at a future meeting. Do you need a motion to not vote on this, or is that adequate enough for you to say that we're not gonna vote on this at this meeting? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to table the minutes to another meeting.
I'll make a motion to table the draft meeting minutes from our Tuesday, January 27th meeting to be taken up when we have a corrected version.
We have a motion to table these minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
I heard Wayne first, so second by Wayne. Motion by Ann. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes will be tabled to a future meeting. Receipt of applications. We have 3 applications to receive this evening. PZ 2026-06. Applicant owner is Nora Deli Food Mart LLC. Somali Monaco is requesting a commercial license for beer and wine sales only, located at 110 Main Street, map 88, block 37, lot 88, zone in B1. PZ 2026-08, the applicant owner is Town of East Windsor, is requesting a site plan review with a public hearing for a new radio tower for public safety located at 2 Reservoir Ave and Chamberlain Road, map 78, block 57, lot 1. And PZ 2026-09, the applicant owner is Huran Chaudhry. Khalil Ali is requesting a site plan modification to install a 30 by 40 metal storage unit located at 140 North Road, map 124, block 24, lot 15. The zone is B3. These applications will be heard at a future meeting. We have no performance bonds, actions, permit extensions, or road acceptance. We have no continued public hearings. So we'll move on to our first new public hearing, PZ 2026-01. The applicant owner is North Winkler East EW LLC. Is requesting a zone change, map change from B3 to PCD located at 173 North Road, map 125, block 25, lot 001B. Is here to speak on behalf of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Nice to see you this evening. My name's Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen at 20 Church Street in Hartford, Connecticut, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight, we have a bit of a team. We have Ralph Sylvester and Dylan Christopher on behalf of the applicant, North Winkler. I have Tom Daly here, SLR, our consulting professional engineer. We have Ray Sullivan from the Sullivan Architectural Group, our architect. And then via Zoom, we have Neil Olinsky from SLR. He's part of our traffic engineering team as well. A few, Mr. Chairman, if I may, procedural housekeeping issues before we get into the substance of the application, just for the record. The commission has before, I can see our tabbed package, our January 9th, 2026 application package, which was of course accompanied by a civil plan set and a stormwater management report as well. The commission should also have another tabbed package, a bit smaller, from February 6th with our supplemental materials. Those were accompanied with, yep, exactly, Commissioner. Those were accompanied by revised plans. And if the commission looks at the first page of our memo at tab 1, you'll see kind of a bulleted summary of what we did to revise those plans. And they were really in response to the staff comments we had received to date. A memorandum from SLR responding to those outstanding staff comments at that time is also in that package, and again, accompanied by that revised civil plan set. Today, we did submit a couple of additional materials, nothing significantly new, but the commission has a couple of copies. I'll note the commission has copies of the PowerPoint will be showing up on the screen in just a second. There's additional copies up there for members of the public as well. We also handed, at staff's request, into the record, we took our rendered master plan and we laid over that in the southern portion of the site, the concept for the future commercial portion of the site. You'll see it's kind of grayed out, and I just want to make it abundantly clear. It's a conceptual site plan. It is not it's not set in stone, so to speak. Ultimately, if we were to get approved for this application, any future development of that commercial piece would be subject to a new site plan application and site plan approval. And then accompanying that, we submitted a plan sheet, if you will, that just shows kind of the zoomed in, less pretty version of the concept for the commercial piece of the site. Regarding public notice, there was a lot of that here. And I thank staff for helping us navigate it and helping us complete it. The signs were posted actually early on January 15th by the North Winkler team. We completed a mailing, and in fact, we completed 2 mailings because, as the commission knows, we had to reschedule the public hearing. So neighbors did receive 2 mailed notices of the public hearing, including tonight's. We thank you to staff for completing the town clerk filing on February 5th, well in advance of the statutory deadline. And then, of course, the newspaper notices, as you noticed and noted, Mr. Chairman. Staff also notified the Enfield town planner and the Enfield town clerk of the proposed application. And again, a big thank you to staff for helping us navigate all of that. And I'm not actually done. I said there was a lot of notice. We had to send notice to CR Cog as well to ask if they had any concerns with the proposed application. Thankfully, we got those materials back, or the response document, and they confirmed that our plan does not conflict with any of the regional plans or policies of the neighboring towns. So another check mark, if you will, on our list of notice requirements. In terms of, I also just wanted to note for the commission, I'll get to this in a second, but we did appear before the East Windsor Wetlands Commission a couple of months ago. We did receive our approval. I'll touch on that again. But I will note at that meeting, there were a number of neighbors present. I made it clear to the public and through the commission, of course, that my direct line was on the front page of our application package, as it is in front of the packages the commission has before it now. I handed out a number of my business cards, opened up our entire team for an open discussion if there were any questions or concerns from members of the public. And again, just noting for the record, I did not receive any calls or emails or messages regarding the proposed plan. So with that, I'm going to ask Ruth, would you mind sharing the PowerPoint? Mike? Thank you. And if you could just go to the second slide, Mike. Thank you. Just a brief overview. I'm not trying to take the wind out of Tom's sails, but just to lay the foundation, if you will, of our proposed plan. So the subject property, 2 seconds. No, that makes sense. Thanks, Mike. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. So the subject property is up on the screen here, outlined in red. It's about 29 acres and it's located in the B3 zone. It's obviously on the north side of North Road. It's currently unimproved, mostly consisting of wooded area and former farm fields. Directly to the north of our site, you actually have the town of Enfield with, as you can see, a number of residential uses along Bass Drive. And then when you go to the south of the side along North Road, you have a number of commercial uses generally directly to the south and to the west along North Road. And then as you get further to the east on North Road, you start seeing residential uses again. Next slide. This is that rendered master concept plan that I had circulated to the commission in hard copy earlier this evening. What North Winkler is currently proposing is a proposed residential community with 152 apartment homes in 4 buildings. That's on the left or the west side of the plan, as the commission can see here, comprised of 4 studios, 92 one-bedrooms, and 56 two-bedroom apartment homes. And then we are also proposing in the northeast or to the right side of the plan, a townhome community consisting of 37 two-bedroom townhomes, again, on the eastern or northeastern portion of the property. Of course, as you can see from everything that's going on site, there's a number of accompanying site improvements, including parking, lighting, landscaping, and stormwater, which again, the rest of our team will go into in just a moment. We did propose this application under the commissions or the regulations PCD. So at staff's request, we are reserving approximately 1.5 acres on the southerly portion along North Road for future commercial development. Again, as I noted, that's a concept plan that you see up on the screen that's grayed out for a future commercial building. As I mentioned, we did receive our wetlands approval on February 3rd after a hearing with a couple of conditions that excuse me, were incorporated into this plan and will be addressed going forward. So with that very brief overview, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to hand it over to Ralph on behalf of North Winkler, just to introduce the applicant to the commission, and then we'll run through our presentation.
One thing, there are 2 separate applications this evening.
Yes.
2 separate hearings. So traditionally, what we'd like to do is just stick with the facts pertinent to the zone change first, vote on that, and then proceed on to the application for the planned commercial development, the layout of your proposed development.
Understood. Mr. Chairman, if I may, and certainly this is at the discretion of the commission, we're happy to do it. I think it would be, and again, I would defer to you, Mr. Chairman, it would be more efficient of the commission's time, and I do this in most towns, if it's a combined public hearing, because then the commission can hear about the entire plan, and then you can conduct two separate votes and two separate deliberations. I just feel like there'd be, and certainly defer to staff on this, but there'd be a lot of, pulling off the hat, putting on the sunglasses.
Yeah, I understand, because we've had similar occasions where people would ask questions that were pertinent to the second application during the first one. And I understand that sometimes it's difficult to delineate one from the other.
It is particularly for something of this nature where it's two separate applications, two separate votes, but everything's really rolled into one plan, if you will.
Then do we need to actually open both public hearings at the same time?
So if the first one doesn't pass, the second one's not gonna go anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah, so the commission typically, and again, this is as counsel for the applicant, this is my position, I'd suggest that the commission, through you, Mr. Chairman, defer to staff on this. But it's one presentation, and then when it ultimately comes time to evaluate and actually vote on the applications, you'd start first, of course, with the zone change, because that's going to lay the foundation for eventually the actual brick and mortar development. And you would just take it up as two separate motions, two separate deliberations, as you would with anything else.
We've never done it that way, but
You did it that way for
Yeah.
Kemet, Quarry Meadows. That's the last time I can remember, because some of the other ones haven't had the sequence in the same.
Normally they don't present both in the same evening. Yeah.
It's pretty standard practice.
Yeah, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, it also, for what it's worth, it's of assistance to members of the public, because it's really hard for members of the public to just comment on the zone change, but not the plan itself. So again, defer to the commission.
We just ran into with the Rice Depot Street.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. So to be clear, just for the record, both public hearings have been opened this time, and we're doing a combined presentation for both applications, correct?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to hand it over to Ralph.
Good evening, Ralph Sylvester, Director of Urbane Capital. Originally founded in New Haven, Connecticut, now currently in Branford, Connecticut, 568 East Main Street, Branford, Connecticut. In all of our developments, we try to be, take care and be very intentional in what we do. Here in East Windsor, we tried to come up with a plan that not only fit in with community, but also fit in with the land itself. Our team worked diligently to come up with a plan that had the least amount of impact possible, while still having the scope and scale that allows for the ultimate, investment into the area that allows for it to be feasible. From the very beginning, we opened up town dialogue with staff, with town staff, and through feedback and staff comments, I think we really honed in a plan that really does work and could be very successful. And so we thank you very much for your consideration, and look very, very much so forward to working together. And I'll let the rest of the team kind of take from here. Thank you.
I think you can go to the next slide. Great, that's a black and white version, but for the record, Tom Daly with SLR Consulting. On this particular project, we have served as the surveyor of record, civil engineer, landscape architecture, traffic engineer, and then environmental consultant. We've had a pleasure of working on this job since the beginning. But as kind of picking up where Ralph started off, the way we approached this project, and actually we've been working at this for quite some time, is the first thing we did was did an exhaustive study of what the existing conditions, really understand what the land was presenting us with. And that started off first where we did a brand new property and topographic survey completed by a licensed surveyor. And then we cut our wetland scientists loose on it. We flagged the wetlands. We spent a lot of time out there looking at the fauna, the flora, understood that, not all wetlands are the same on the site. What are we really working with? We actually even went to the standard where we did grab samples out there, understanding that this had some historic agricultural use. just to make sure there was nothing out there, and it came back clean. So this is, and Andre and I work in some other communities where that's not always the case, but from a due diligence standpoint, we did that. So we really got into the property before we even put the pen to paper. And what this indicated is that's what's on the screen is a copy of the survey. This is simply just the same thing with an aerial background. But you can see from here, so to get yourself oriented so we have at the southern portion of the road, we have North Road running all the way across the frontage. The only outlier is the little carve out of what I believe to be the historic home is carved out of the property, and that's why that's kind of a tooth in there. We have Mullen, which is located on our western border. And as Andrea indicated, our northern border is actually the town line. And just to the north of that is Bass Road. And you can see it has been developed in the past as single family homes. As we got into the property, as you can see, there is a fairly significant portion of the property is wetlands. Approximately about 11 acres of the land is wetlands. Now, a good portion of those wetlands actually are just fallow agricultural land, and some of the areas are more wet. But ultimately, our wetland scientists went out there and flagged it. So all the green areas you're looking at, so we essentially have 3 bands. Along Mullen Road was probably our biggest band. We have 2 water courses that run through the property. In this band here, some maps show different things, but it's Beeman's Brook is what we could find. And it's a larger wetland corridor here. And ultimately what that determined was where was the land that was best suited for starting to study for a development plan. And what we found was we have this area in the western portion. As you can see, it's a pretty large area. We also have an easement here that somehow also borders on our western that kind of kept us away from there. But this presented ourselves to us as a good area for development. We do have this central area here, but based upon its proximity and, in between 2 wetlands, that seemed to be a lesser area for us. And then we had an area here that was located up in the northeast corner. We also, as Andre indicated, there's a small area directly abutting North Road here. And that's the area that we thought was well suited for a potential commercial development. And actually, you'll see in the application, I believe in the zone change, we actually carved that out. And it wasn't initially as part of it, but we carved it out and left it in the commercial zone in the front corner. So this area is this area runs approximately, let's see my notes here, sorry. It's about elevation 110. And in this area, you're going to get up to about elevation 124. Still generally very gentle rolling land. And then to give you a Bass Drive up here is also about elevation 120. So this area is kind of on a plateau and this is on the flat area. But as we got into the ecology and understood what the land was best suited for, we partnered with Urbane and Ray Sullivan, and we came up with a plan. And essentially, it started to present ourselves as 2 neighborhoods. So the plan that we are presenting to you this evening is, I like to think of it as 2 neighborhoods. And the first neighborhood we'll walk you through is the area of the apartments. And one of the areas, this is the area of the bigger buildings, the taller, the bigger massing. And the reason it found its way there is it's relatively flat. And also it's farther away and more tucked in and actually fairly large buffers. Just to give you the distance is building 1, if you measure from the curb line to the building, it's about 100 feet back from there. But this is essentially the apartment neighborhood. And I think we solved a bunch of things that we're excited about. One of the things here is you'll look at is many times you'll see a development and you see all the buildings are rung around the thing and a big parking lot in the middle. We tried not to do that here. And we created by kind of making a little bit of a spread out of units, we were able to make some smaller parking lots. I mean, we easily could have put this building back here and just had a big sea of parking, but by tucking some of that parking behind there, it really broke down the overall feel of it and made it feel smaller. So as you come into the property, we'll start here is one part of the revision to the plan is we are proposing a new sidewalk system. So the intersection of North and Mullen will be bringing a brand new sidewalk system in. We also will be lining that with street trees. This whole area will remain, untouched. That's the blue area, which is wetland. As you come in, we'll have a boulevard drive. We like to put the boulevard drive. It allows for some, more landscaping at the front, a little more of a formal entrance. One of the staff comments that came in is about a mail kiosk. So located on the right-hand side, we'll have a mail kiosk that allows the postal service to drop off the mail there. We are expecting, though, that will not where the packages are. The clubhouse, which is located back here, will have a package room where the residents will actually have a security key fob to get in there and get that area out of there. Oh, thank you for jumping. But as you come in here, throughout the entire community is a sidewalk system. So you can walk from one point from another point all on the sidewalk system, and including down the main drive and also the drive out to the townhouses. We also located in the apartments, we have dumpster areas located, 3 located. So they're very close proximity to those apartments. We have bike racks that are located throughout here. That was one of the comments from town staff. Also part of that is we'll have a clubhouse with an outdoor amenity, fire pit, an area to sit that will be located centrally here and there. And also we're also proposing some walking trails that are going out into the meadow area. These will be kind of soft, stone dust or just a mowed meadow. They're not hard surface. Also to the north is we have a small dog run. Very popular amenity. It seems like every project we're doing that. So that'll be located at the north end of here. So sidewalk system throughout here. We do have streetlights through here, but as part of your application, we provided a photometric plan. These are lights that are down lighting, dark sky compliant, and we've shown that we are at 0-foot candles well before any property line. We work with a local lighting manufacturer, and they design it to make sure we meet all the standards there on that. So this is neighborhood 1. As we come in, then we turn right and we go up to the townhouses. And as you can see, the size of these townhouses are much smaller than they were in here. And what we felt strongly was by lowering the density and bringing those down to a smaller scale, they were more appropriate to be adjacent to the single family home. So larger buildings here, and then we bring these down. And as Andrea indicated, we just have 37 townhomes here. These townhomes you'll have your own garage, you'll have your own driveway apron in the front. You'll even actually bring out your trash in your own can, and we'll work with a local pickup company and they'll come pick that up. So this will be much more single family, brought the scale down on there. We have designed a cul-de-sac here. And we actually, early on, before we even went to wetlands, we have a software that allows us to build your town fire truck. Your fire marshal gave us the specifications. We actually put it into a model called AutoTurn, and we ran it through the entire site to show that we get access all through these parking lots and around this cul-de-sac with no problem. That was provided to your fire marshal while we're actually in the wetlands application process. So in terms of trash management, in this area, it'll just be single family homes picking up at the curb. And in here, we have the dumpster and recycling areas that will be in centrally located area. The same type of light fixtures that are here are over here. Once again, full download, get on to the point where we're 0-foot candles. One other thing, as part of the landscaping plan, you can see we are putting all new trees located throughout here in the parking lot and along the road. Our goal is always to use native species to the extent possible, and that palette of materials, but you're going to see a palette of materials on the landscaping plan that is not monoculture. There's a lot of variety. Our landscape architects had a lot of fun with it. And so you're a lot of variety, not a single palette of material. One other thing we are doing is we are providing a landscape buffer along the road, along the back property line. But also as part of your regulations, you talk about what the options are for screening to adjacent properties. And even though this is single family to single family, your regulations require us to consider that. These buildings are approximately about 40 feet off the property line, but starting from approximately here to there, we are proposing a 6-foot high vinyl screen fence. We felt that was the most immediate. It's low maintenance. It provides very good day one screening, but we are still putting a landscape buffer in front of that, made up of both deciduous and evergreen trees. Next slide. And so that's really just a black and white of what we, so keep going. Next slide. As part of the project, we have the project will be served by both public water and public sewer. We received a will serve letter from the WPCA board of the town saying they have sufficient capacity. In addition to that, we have a very robust stormwater system. So when we came at this, we actually looked at it, we have to look at it two ways. Back in the old days, we just looked at quantity. We just said, hey, if we're not flooding anybody, we're good. The new 2024 DEP manual, we have to look at quality as most important, as equal to quantity. So we're really dealing with it in two separate ways. On the apartment side of things, we're doing with underground chambers. So all the stormwater will go into an underground chamber. It'll infiltrate and it'll be cooled down before it gets discharged to the wetlands. And actually in the townhouses, you can see in these light colored areas, they're a combination of rain gardens. In these areas are 2 rain gardens, and then in here is stormwater basins. So these are above ground vegetated basins. Also part of the wetlands application, we are doing a wetland creation area that's located to the north here. And also there's an area here in light green. This is where there's a lot of farm debris, old equipment, kind of debris out there. We committed to the Wetlands Commission that we would go out there, clean all that up, and then basically restore it back to meadow. We'll seed it back to a meadow mix. The other thing is the applicant is also committed to working with the town to put a conservation restriction over all the wetlands. Understanding there is still a need to go in there and wet and maintain those areas. So Andrea has successfully done this in many other communities. That easement or restriction will be crafted in a way that you can still, if a tree falls down or there's a clogged pipe or we have to get in there and maintain that wetland creation area, and we have those rights to do it. It's not a, no touch, but it will be restricted on those blue areas that you're seeing here. We'll put a deed restriction on there or a conservation restriction. I will note that approximately about over 68% of this site is natural, that will never be touched. As you can see, just if your eye tells you what the density is. Your calculation, your requirements are that we can have a maximum impervious coverage of 65%. We're at 17. And we actually look at the numbers in terms of just green space, we're at about 85% on this. And part of that was the land told us what could be done. But I think we've done a very sensitive way to do it, to the point where we got a unanimous approval from the Wetlands Commission, because I think we really approached it in an ecological way on that. One other thing that when we first met with the fire marshal, we do have these dark green areas. Those will be grass paver areas that will serve as a kind of a fire truck if they had to back up there. And then we've done that successfully in many areas. Next slide. Next slide. The other part of it is to get water to this site is we will be embarking on a fairly significant water main extension for this property. So I believe it's down on Winkler is where it ends today. We actually had very early conversations with the water company. Hazardville is right around our corner, but that's not how it works. Towns have exclusive use areas. So we will be bringing a water main all the way up North Road to our main entrance drive. And also as we come in there, we'll be popping hydrants in locations where your fire department wants them to be. They're typically about 500-foot spacing, but that will be part of this application. And that's what we had to zoom out so far because it shows you how far the water main is coming to this property. Next slide. The other thing is also under your peer review and the wetlands peer review is erosion control. We put together a detailed erosion control plan. The nice thing about the two neighborhoods is you can really work on those areas from a site perspective. So it's actually fairly small. This area being flat. And we did put together erosion control plan that when we rely on erosion control, we never rely on a single level. We're always trying to build in belt and suspenders. So you look at this erosion control plan, you'll see that when we're up against wetlands, we have at least 2 to 3 levels of protection in terms of protecting the erosion. But basically, this is not a large earthwork project. We're working with the topography to the greatest extent. So it's my opinion that this project can be easily managed as part of an erosion control plan. It will need a DEP permit that we get after we get approvals. Any project that of this scale, you have to register with the DEP to there, and they'll take a look at that. But that was part of our application. Next slide. Next slide. And with that, I would ask that I'm going to hand it over to Neil Olinsky, who is our traffic engineer, who is coming in remotely. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening, everybody. For the record, Neil Olinsky with SLR. Been working in traffic engineering for a good 20 years. I have a master's in engineering from UConn, and I worked on this traffic study with our team of traffic engineers and transportation planners at SLR. So as you can see, the site location, I think everybody knows where it is. For our traffic studies, specifically, we analyze traffic flow conditions along North Road, essentially all the way down to all the way over to I-91. So all the key intersections along that entire stretch. Next slide. But one of the first things we do, and one of the first things I think most people are curious about when they hear about a development in terms of traffic is how much new traffic is this going to create or generate. And what we do to estimate that is we look at what is really the industry standard book on that, which is a set, really it's a booklet of a very thick booklet of statistics that's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers that has all kinds of land uses. But for this type of land use and this size, this proposed size in this location, based on this ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual, we're estimating that during a typical weekday morning peak hour, this is going to generate on the order of 15 entering trips and 48 exiting trips. And during the afternoon peak hour, you have essentially more of a reverse flow, obviously more inbound with around 45 entering vehicle trips and 27 exiting vehicle trips that are estimated. And again, these are not all day. These are just peak hours, because really what we do when we do our traffic studies, we really zoom in on just the peak single hours of the day, 1 to 2 hours of the day, which are really the busiest times, and the times that the roadway network is most stressed. Next slide. So the next thing we do in our traffic studies is we estimate the routing of the new traffic from a development. What we did was we looked at the roadway traffic patterns out there. We looked at census data as well. We're estimating that around approximately 2/3 of the peak hour traffic is going to route west of the site down North Road towards I-91 Route 5, around 1/3 to the east along North Road Route 140, and around 10-15% via some of the more local and nearby side streets or side roads, including Mullen Road and Wells Road. So once you sort of start looking by direction, east, west, north, south, those peak hour traffic volumes for the development, obviously, they spread out by direction, and those numbers become smaller and smaller. And essentially, the site-specific traffic fans out within the roadway network, the further you get away from the site. All right, so next slide. So the site traffic is, obviously, it is a small portion of the overall roadway traffic out there. And as I mentioned, when we do our traffic studies, we analyze traffic with and without the development in place. First thing we do is we look at it without the development's traffic in the mix. And what we do for that is we essentially set up a baseline traffic model. We did traffic counts. We had traffic counts of these several study intersections done in the middle of September 2024. We found that the peak hours around 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning and around 4:15 to 5:15 in the afternoon. And then we asked the town and ConnDOT, okay, what are we expecting for roadway growth and other developments in the next several years? We got that information and we essentially expanded the 2024 traffic volumes to next year, 2027, later on in 2027, which is what we're calling the future build year. So that establishes essentially the baseline roadway network without the development. And then we add the site traffic in the mix. And then we have two scenarios. We have one scenario with the roadway traffic without the development and one with. And then really the last major step of the traffic study is we modeled that. We modeled the traffic flows. And really the way that traffic flows are reported is something called level of service, which is essentially a gradation scale from A to F, with level of service A, or LOSA, being really just free flow, no traffic congestion, really no notable traffic delays. And level of service F on the other side of that sort of scale is congestion. When we look at peak hours, again, these are the most stressed times of the day for the roadway network. Oftentimes in many communities, level of service D and better, so A, B, C, D, is generally considered acceptable. Once you get down to E and F, then you really start looking at, do we need to make improvements to the roadway network or manage traffic demands, things like that. So trying to keep this concise, what we essentially found when we looked at the signalized intersections, we found that this development's traffic will have some impact, relatively minor, but over at the I-91 southbound on-ramp at North Road, we found that this development's traffic can and is expected to essentially tilt the scale from a level service D to an E during the weekday morning peak hour. Then we looked at what can we do about that. What we found is that we could, and again, this is going to be contingent upon ConnDOT, which I'll get into in a minute. We can, that level of service D to E, we could basically mitigate that, keep level of service D, keep the pre-existing level of service with some signal timing adjustments or signal timing revisions. We also found that a couple of the other signals could also use some signal timing adjustments, although they're not expected to be impacted by this development in terms of level of service, specifically at Mullen Road at North Road and North Road at Route 5, Prospect Hill. Those intersections could also use signal timing adjustments. And we're going to review those with Connecticut DOT through what is called the Office of State Traffic Administration, or OSTA, approval process, because this development is large enough, it's going to need a state level review as well from ConnDOT, and they're going to look at all our traffic details and see if they actually do want to do signal timing adjustments. So actually, let's go to the next slide. I think this is my final slide. So as in the lower left, yes, potential signal timing adjustments are one of the improvements that we're going to go over with Connecticut DOT to see if they want to do that. And as you've heard, another improvement this development is going to do is we're going to put in a sidewalk along a good portion of North Road. And then last but not least, when we did our traffic flow analysis, we noticed that Wells Road at North Road, just sort of at the southeast corner of the site, really, which is unsignalized today, that does have some delay coming, really the northbound Wells Road approach, specifically the left turn from the stop sign controlled approach. It has some poor delay, particularly in the afternoon peak hour, if I'm not mistaken. But started looking at some old aerials, and I was noticing that the stop bar is currently further south than it needs to be. So essentially, it's operating as just a one-lane approach by and large. If you were to move the stop bar, relocate it back north, closer to Route to North Road. You could essentially give more room so that, yes, left turners will probably continue to have some delay, but you can move the stop bar north so that people coming up Wells Road can take a right more easily and not get encumbered by other folks waiting to take a left. Moving the stop bar north will also generally help sight distances, motorist visibility at that approach as well. So we do recommend that as well. And last but not least, the site driveway for this development is expected to operate well. Particularly traffic going past the site and entering the site is expected to continue to operate quite well at level of service A. And at the exit, we are recommending just some vegetation clearing as needed to achieve adequate sight distances for drivers that are going to be leaving when they leave the site, so they can see far enough to the left and to the right to exit the site. So that's pretty much it in terms of traffic. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
We'll hold questions till the end.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand it over to Ray Sullivan, our architect. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ray Sullivan of the Sullivan Architectural Group. I've got a master's in architecture between school and practice. I've been in the field for over 50 years. A few years back, I sold my practice to some of the younger guys. So I stepped back my hours, dropped my registration, but I mostly get involved in some of this conceptualizing preliminary design and through the approval process. That's really what I like. And I've had the good fortune of working with Tom, very often, and they do a great job at site planning. So we've got an elevation on the screen, but I first want to just review a couple numbers we've already reviewed. So we've got 152 units in 4 multifamily buildings, plus a small clubhouse. The buildings are 4 stories. They're wood framed and they're slab on grade. The site plan concept that Tom described so well is there's this building fronting North Road, which we wanted to do, and then in back there's a little over 100 units. 100 units in one building is pretty standard. That could have been one building back there. But working with Dylan and Tom, we decided to break it up. Because, we thought we'd get a better kind of community feel that way. So it's actually far less efficient for the developers to build multiple buildings. You can put the buildings together and still have 2 stairs instead of 4 or 6. You'd have fewer elevators. A lot of things would be easier. But I think they took the harder road, the correct road, to make sure that the development, took on its value, and I think those decisions worked out very well on the site plan. Besides this building, we described 37 townhouses. Those buildings they're all 3 stories, except for I think 5 units at the end of a couple of the buildings that drop down. They're only 2 stories because they're handicap units. So the design theme here, it's what we call, or what everybody calls, a contemporary farmhouse. And what that is, it's a blending of the rustic charm of that vintage with clean and simple materials and proportions in just a more modern composition. So for the traditional components, if you can all see the screen, the main roof is a gable roof. The main accent components on the front elevation are reverse gables. Sometimes they're doubles, but that's the main component of the elevations. And then all the traditional materials we use double hung windows. We've got bay windows. We've got dormers. We've got clapboard siding. We've got vertical board and batten siding. And then we've got stone accents, picket railing accents, and standing seam roof accents. So we've kind of organized it. It's really all the traditional components that you see in a traditional building, but we've organized it in a slightly more contemporary fashion. The detailing is very, very simple. We've used a black and white color scheme. One thing that does is, if you look close, all the corners have vertical corner boards. When we change materials to a vertical board and batten to a clapboard, that's got horizontal trim banding. Up at the wall to roof, that's got banding. When we come down to the stone, the siding has banding before it transitions to the stone. But what happens in this color scheme is you don't recognize all those details. And I think the palette makes the building a little bit more simpler and cleaner. And that gives it some of its contemporary look. By comparison, sometimes you could see 2- and 3-story buildings that have, some bright colors and contrasting corner board to siding and all these different materials. And sometimes it looks so busy, they could be beautifully proportioned and beautiful buildings, but that, they look a little busy. The intent here was to make these proportions and that building not busy. We wanted to simplify it because we had 4-story buildings. We wanted to simplify it so that the scale of the building, looked good in that field. And we think with this contemporary farmhouse scheme, we've been able to achieve that. Could we turn to any one of the floor plans? Might be there. So it's probably pretty hard for you to pick up the detail of this. So the multifamilies they're centrally loaded corridor plans, with units on either side. The elevators in the middle with the stairs at either end. I think a question came up, are the elevators stretcher compliant? Yes, every elevator is stretcher compliant. The main entry lobby, is on the ground floor. It's in the center of the building. We've been going back and forth. We are able, originally we thought we might take mail and package storage here. We realized they're going somewhere else. But so we've got some support spaces that we can use down in the main lobby. We went through the number of units, but just by comparison, it's 60% 1-bedroom and 40% 2-bedroom, and there's a few studios thrown in there. Every unit has an individual deck, so every unit's got outdoor space. It's private. And every unit has its own utilities. So, there'll be, electric meters, well, we haven't decided on the mechanical system yet. Whatever utility we use, there'll be meters that go to each individual unit. Same thing with the water. And so everybody will, have their own use of the utilities. All units are 1 hour protected and individually draft stop. So what that means is, if you look at a unit, the unit to unit separation wall between another unit, that's 1 hour. The unit to corridor is 1 hour. The exterior wall is 1 hour rated. The floor ceiling assembly is also 1 hour rated. So when you do all of that, the corridor is 1 hour rated. So we've got, kind of good protection within the units. And then at 4 stories, the stairs are required to be 2 hour rated. So the buildings aren't that big. The travel distance to the stairs is not that great. And so, I think, security for the units, is pretty well done in such a small building. All the buildings are sprinklered. And then all these components are designed with sound deadening intent. So, you get these apartment buildings and sometimes they can be loud, but so sound goes through materials that are all combined. So if you made that floor with a truss, put subfloor on it, and then nailed a hardwood floor to it, and then sheetrock the underside of that truss with sheetrock, that whole thing is one composition. So the sound waves kind of just work their way right through it, and it becomes a noisy event. So what we do is we segregate all the materials. So the truss goes in, the plywood goes down, and then a sound mat goes down. So it's a kind of a foam sound mat. And then gypcrete, which is liquid gypsum, goes on top of that. So when you walk through a wood frame building that has gypcrete on it, it almost feels like you're walking through a concrete building. You know, it really feels sturdy. And the reality is that gypcrete, you know, it actually floats because it's not nailed to the subfloor or the trusses. And so, you know, the sound vibration doesn't go through because you know, all those components, you know, can vibrate. On the underside of the truss, none of the sheetrock is screwed to the truss. The sheetrock is screwed to a Z clip. So the Z clip gets screwed to the truss, and then the gypcrete, the sheetrock gets screwed to the other end of that. So it's off the truss by this much. Again, it is a sound deadening practice because noise creates this reverberation, and if you kind of create flexibility within that material composition, that composition will absorb the sound and they become quieter. The corridor walls, one wall of the corridor, the sheetrock is screwed to the same Z clip. So it's not screwed, you know, we're not attaching sheetrock tight to either side of that stud. You know, one side is kind of floating, you know, just like the ceiling does. And then on the unit to unit partition, we actually build two partitions. You know, one unit ends, there's a stud wall, there's an air gap, and then the next unit starts. And the trusses frame onto your own wall and don't transfer. So the whether it's fire or sound, the units are pretty well isolated. And the gypcrete, and there are other materials besides gypcrete, which can be used, which are newer, but the intent is the same. You know, but you know, those materials, besides being sound deadening, you know, really kind of help make the building feel solid. So we talked about the sprinkler system. Every unit is handicapped adaptable, every one. So 90% of the units will be what we call a type B unit, and 10% of the units will be a type A unit. So, you know, so the difference is that the type A unit has a slightly higher build out of ADA compliance in it. You know, so like for instance, in either an A or B, you're not putting grab bars on the wall and shower, but you've got blocking in there so the grab bar easily goes in. You know, doorways have to be a certain width. Latch clearances approaching a door has to be a certain width. So, you know, everything gets to be a little bit bigger. And so everyone is set up to be adaptable. And the type A unit is slightly more adaptable. And that really shows up in the kitchen. You know, so, you know, for instance, every kitchen counter in the world is 36 inches high, right? In the type A units, they have to be 34 inches high, right? And then you have to be able to, the cabinets below the kitchen sink have to be able to pull out. And you have to make it so that it's simple. It shouldn't be a lot of construction. You should be able to pull them out. And there should be a finished floor underneath it so that, you know, that someone in a wheelchair has the unit, you know, they're able to wheel in under the kitchen sink and they have a workspace also at 34 inches. So like those things you can't adapt that later because it's too much work. So those components are built into the type A units. And again, the type A unit is slightly more ADA ready than the type B unit, but they're all adaptable. Let me see. And then, you know, so, you know, the codes change from time to time. The building codes change from time to time. They changed back in 201, which was actually accepted in 202, and then there were supplements sent out. There wasn't a lot of change to the building code, but there was to the energy code. So the energy code is much tougher today. So you know, we've got to perform, this is a 4-story building, so we have to do it as a comm check. The level of insulation that's in these buildings is substantial. And quite often what we're doing now is you've got a 2x6 stud on the outside wall. You know, we're oftentimes spraying a spray foam insulation, maybe 2.5 inches, and then 3.5 inches of fiberglass insulation. So that, you know, you get, you know, a very high R value And you also see with that spray foam, you seal the outside of the building. I mean, infiltration is where a lot of the stuff comes through, and you're really sealing it off. So, ERVs are required in a building like this, which are energy recovery units. So, not only are the buildings safe in terms of, fire and utilities, sound, but they're also, extremely well insulated, which makes them quieter too, just by nature. So then just quickly, the typical townhouse, I don't know if you want to flip to a townhouse, but it's okay, yeah. So the typical townhouse, has 2 living floors over the garage floor. And so you've got living, dining, kitchen, and support services on that second level, and the bedrooms are up on a third. So they're all 2 bedrooms, oversized 1-car garage, all with individual entrances. And they really act like single family houses that are built together. And in fact, they end up being in the single family building code because we build them with a firewall, so they're actually all technically individual buildings. And they're ranging from 16 to 1,800 square feet, depending on how much area in the lower level, which has some area to finish. They do finish. There are, even though it's a townhouse, once you get to a certain threshold of units, which is 20, 10% of the townhouses have to be ADA compliant. So, if you look at the plan, there are 5 units that are wider. It shows on another elevation. So in that plan, I don't know if you could flip to that. There's another, it could be the next one. No, keep going.
Yeah, well, that's got the lower.
Yeah, that one there you can see it well. So you can, the units on the end drop down. So the units on the end are the handicapped accessible units. So that the footprint of those are a little bit bigger and not as tall. So on that ground floor, you have to have everything on the ground floor. You've got living, dining, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. You've got everything down there on that ground floor. And then on the second floor, there's another bedroom suite. So, but because we meet a threshold, you can see small projects that have 15 units, they don't have to have, ADA compliant units. But once you get to a certain threshold, then 10% of them have to be. And so we have 5, ADA compliant, units. And the architecture and the look of the townhouses are the same as the multifamily. So you may be holding questions for later, but I'm set for now.
Thanks, Ray. Mr. Chairman, for the record, again, Andrea Gomes, counsel for the applicant. I just wanted to point out in the PowerPoint, it's already in the materials from the record, but you'll see a number of rendered perspectives. I'm certainly Ray's the expert here, not me, but I just wanted to highlight them for the commission while I have you. So sorry, Mike, if you could go just back to slide 20 quickly, just to show the commission. So that's a rendered perspective of building 1. That's this building here. It's the apartment building closest to North Road. You can see the sidewalk running along the street frontage. And just a perspective, again, you have about, I think Tom said 100 feet back to the building from the street. So that's just a rendered perspective of what you see in the plans. And then Mike, if you could flip forward to 23, just to compare again, this is again a rendered perspective of a 4-unit townhome cluster, if you will. They're clustered. That's really what you're seeing kind of at the beginning of the townhome community. When you drive in, it's those 4-unit clusters. And then if you go to 26, again, that is, as Ray was saying, that's a larger townhome cluster with the ADA units. And I think you can see in that lower right-hand corner, I believe that's one of these right here towards the northerly portion of the site. And you'll see there's kind of a red key at the bottom that shows that. So just wanted to point that out for the commission. And then finally, if you go to slide 28, At staff's request, we put together just a concept rendering of what we can expect the commercial building to look like. Again, concept only, but just carrying through that modern farmhouse feel and design to eventually what will be the commercial building. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. I defer to the commission how you'd like to proceed. I will note I do have closing comments, of course. If we are to close the hearing, I'd reserve the right, if I may, at the end of the hearing to provide those, but I leave it to the commission if you want to ask questions or turn it over to public comment. It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll begin with questions, and if it would be easier, we'd direct all the questions to you, and if you cannot answer, you can.
So I captain the ship, if I may, so I will take, I'm really good at delegating. I've learned, so I'll delegate to the experts.
Would you like to begin?
Okay, I got a few questions. You mentioned water, you mentioned sewer, didn't hear anything about gas.
Yes, so the building, and I can have Tom come up here and talk about that. So the building is not on.
You guys are pulling water all the way down and everybody's gonna say, why don't you pull gas at the same time?
To be honest with you, the new technology for electric, all our multifamily is going all electric. Gas has not become.
It's all backup heat pumps. No.
Heat pumps.
So basically it's electric.
Yeah.
I know it's like we're going back to the 70s.
No, actually, we're not. Because here's the difference.
Come on, Ray, to the microphone.
15, 20 years ago, they've been doing it in Japan for a while. These are VRF units. That's a variable refrigerant flow. So what happened back in the 70s was that the period we just went through in the temperature, and like tonight, you would have a heat pump. They'd sell you, it's really, really efficient. But it would be nothing but electric baseboard heat when it got to 30 degrees. And, you know, your utility bill would have been enormous through the winter. So what happens with the VRFs, you know, is that it functions, and because it's variable, you know, that other unit was kind of one speed. So because it's variable and can modulate, it actually acts as a heat pump. And depending on what unit you buy and what spec you get, you know, it can act as a heat pump still at 0 degrees. So again, it depends on which one you buy. So most of those were Japanese products. Most American companies make them now. And even the old heat pumps, which went to resistance at 30, you know, now don't go to resistance till maybe 15. But usually they are the VRF units, and so they are extremely efficient. And you know, there's kind of a push. Gee, what's the carbon footprint with gas? So they've been going, you know, really predominantly, as Tom said, all electric.
So have you guys used these in other properties at all? And so there's no intention of pulling gas down 140 at all?
We've almost used them exclusively for the last, I wouldn't say 10 years, but for a while now. And here's the other problem. The other problem is, you know, I mentioned everybody's got their own individual utilities. So what would happen is you'd have a bunch of electric meters on one side of the building. You'd have a bunch of gas meters on the other side of the building. And then from that meter, that pipe had to work its way through the entire building to get to the 4th floor on the other side. So there was a enormous kind of spaghetti of piping that was running through the unit, which we never thought was all that safe anyway. You know, somebody's hanging a picture, I mean, or somebody goes crazy doing a repair. So no, they're you know, at 5 to 10 years, you know, past, you know, almost every one of them, you know, has been all electric.
So what do you guys plan on doing for the common areas, the hallways and like the clubhouse and stuff like that? Mini splits, or are you doing the same kind of?
Well, so yeah, so they could be mini splits or cassettes. And what happens is you need the energy recovery unit, and that helps, you know, the corridors as well. You know, there's not a lot of load in the corridors. The bigger load, if anybody needs a load, is in the clubhouse. You know, when you have a larger capacity. So, you know, we haven't designed the system for that, but if there was one building, one space remote, you know, we'd get propane if we were going to go that way. But the electric is so efficient today that I can't remember the last time we ran gas through a building.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I know you're in the trades, but I'll just note this for benefit of everyone else that these are all details that are worked out at the building permit stage, of
I
course.
realize that.
Yeah,
My big question was getting gas down the,
absolutely. Yep, understood.
the big, huge, we've been trying to do that for 30 years, 40 years. Yeah,
Already.
we're getting water. I was thinking, hey, when a trench is open, I realized that the gas company is gonna charge you per foot or,
Well, I mean, we'll note this and I will say, we have to open the roadway for the water pipe.
No.
We certainly don't need gas. We would be willing to coordinate as long with the town for the town's installation if they wanted to, as long as it doesn't impede or hold up our construction schedule. That's the problem, because we're on a tight schedule,
I
but
don't think,
that's kind of
I don't think it's in the budget. I'll stop with that.
for you on that. That's above my Commissioner.
Yeah, I'm not gonna see all the questions on, there's a lot of questions. So Wells Road, the traffic. So coming on Wells Road, you're talking about moving that stop bar. Right now where that bar's at, nobody stops there. Everybody goes to the end of the road because you can't see it with the sight line. So that's always at the end. And I see that your level of service there is not good. So I understand that's out of your purview. It's gonna be DOT, OSCO, whoever the heck is over there, but the level of service is at an F.
I'm going to ask Neil Olinsky, who's on the call, to respond to that, Commissioner, and I'm going to pull up the traffic report as well.
Yeah, that is an unsignalized intersection, and it is at State Road, and it's going to be part of the review by Connecticut DOT and their OSTA, the Office of State Traffic. They're going to get that a good look, and there's certain criteria, federal criteria we have to look at. If we want to consider things like potentially signalizing the intersection, it has to meet really some requirements in terms of levels of traffic for upwards of 8 hours a day. It has to meet certain thresholds of traffic volumes to that are set forth in what's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD, in their signal warrants chapter to see if a signal would even be warranted. So that'll all get looked at as part of the OSTA. I don't have a good sense for whether or not it will meet. My gut is it probably won't meet enough of the signal warrants to justify signalizing. So that might be out of the question. And then really it's just a matter of trying to manage it as best as possible. I mean, yes, people do they pull north of that stop bar. Formalizing that might help a little. By and large, probably just people, good chunk of the people who drive through there do it regularly, and it's people who know the area. So that's just what they do and what they've always done.
Not that I live
but yeah.
on Wells Road, but I live on Wells Road and I pull out there every day.
Mhm.
So, it would probably help the signal above 140 on the hill. But what happens, the big group of cars come down, that light turns green up on the hill, and then like 50 cars come. You can't pull out, then the signal from Mullen Road, that light turns, and 50 cars come that way. So that's why you can't really, that's why it's hard to pull out there. I know timing on the signals would help. Whatever.
Yeah, there's definitely some something there too. You know, what we call like the really how the way the signals are functioned. And that comes back to what I was talking about earlier with the DOT is going to look at some of the signal timing revisions we came up with to see not only will it benefit the particular intersection itself, but some of the nearby unsignalized side streets, so that you can essentially get a bigger gap in the traffic on like North Road. So it is easier to pull out of a stop sign.
Correct. I think that definitely help. I'll have a couple more questions. I'll save more for my other fellow commissioners. Townhouses, they're not for sale, right? Rented?
No, they'll be for sale.
For sale.
Yep, the
Are they
apartment will
owned?
be rental, the townhomes will be for sale.
Okay. Okay. It's good to know. I have more, but I'll let these guys go next. Thank you.
Okay, Wayne?
Yes. I know it's a little bitty picture here, but you don't show any handicap parking out here, right?
They are there, Commissioner. If you look at the civil plan set,
Okay,
it's an overall large site, so any level of detail when we're showing the entire site is kind of hard, but there are
Okay.
sheets within the plan set that zoom in on the apartment community and
Right.
then the townhome community, and you'll see the required number of handicap parking spaces. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but they're in there. I
okay.
don't think we would have gotten this far with staff if we hadn't had them in there.
The You gonna have security in there? What kind of security are you gonna have for
Security lighting.
this?
Yes, so there is a.
Cameras? Like
Sorry?
cameras?
No, I mean, ultimately,
Look at it, some level of cameras, things like that, but the entire site will have, security ready.
security, yeah. No.
Yeah, so obviously the entire site will have some level of security lighting. Again, that's all gonna be dark sky, rated lighting, all down, all pointing downward.
That you said,
Doesn't go beyond the 180-degree, all the good stuff. And certainly we'll look at the idea of cameras, and things like that, just to kind of have just general coverage of the community, by and large. Cameras are kind of always tough. You can never really have enough of them when you really need it kind of thing, but we're definitely gonna make efforts to make it as safe as possible for the residents.
And then Commissioner, just piggybacking off of what Ralph just said, one of the revisions or one of the staff comments that we had to respond to was with respect to lighting. So we confirmed in our supplemental materials package that we're going to have lighting on site, but it will be dark sky compliant, full cutoff, zero light candles at the property line, and so on and so forth. And again, that's achieving the balance of providing for safe circulation for the nurse that's coming home from her shift at 2 a.m. versus ensuring that we're not impacting surrounding property owners. So that's how we do it. We just make sure they're pointed down and they don't go far beyond, they
Right.
don't go beyond the property line.
are these ponds here? These green things or standing water ponds? What is it?
Right here?
Yeah.
I'll ask Tom. They're not, but go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, for the record, Tom Daly, they are stormwater basins,
Okay.
but they're not expected. So they'll be, what we want to do is the first 1 inch of rain will sit in there and infiltrate. We actually found fairly good soil out in here. So, but they're not ponds like you would expect. They're going to be, most of the time they're dry. But then once we get a good storm, they'll fill up and then they'll release at a very slow rate. But no, not ornamental ponds. They are basins. And most of the time they'll be just, you'll see them as meadow.
While you're standing,
Yeah.
what would you propose to do with all the snow? I mean, look what we have now.
So
We really got,
yeah, and it's funny, this is always coming, that question is more prevalent. I'm sure I'll get it tomorrow night at another hearing. It really comes to our forefront. So a couple things happening. Ultimately, throughout this property, snow will be managed by a company. So, people won't be out there with individual snow blowers. The intent is it'll be all managed. Under normal snow, and one of the revisions that town staff is, we've shown snow storage locations on the site. And the nice thing, like with this cul-de-sac, you can put it here and there's storage. But I will be the first to admit that these piles showing up, at some point you have to get out there with a Bobcat and you're gonna have to put it in a truck, but that's not a challenge that all these communities are not facing. So normal snow events, normal years, gets shoved all to the corner, gets compact quite big, but we're in a little different territory that I can't remember in a decade and a half. But at that point, it will have to get shoveled and taken off-site and managed as a separate company.
And Commissioner, the way we typically suggest that's addressed is you can do it as an approval condition if you wanted to require that all snow be stored on the all snow removed from the impervious surfaces, right? We're not going to scrape the snow off the grass,
Right.
but all of the snow pushed out of the parking is stored in the snow storage areas on site, and excess snow will be carted off site, which is in effect what happens with these types of communities anyway, because you can't take up your residents' parking. So
just, one other thing is, just curious about these Z clips. They provide space.
I'm not even going to pretend to. So Ray,
That's half,
you can talk the talk about a lot of things, but not.
it's
Go ahead.
hat channel, right? Metal hat channel is what it is.
Ray Sullivan, it's a hat channel, but what it doesn't go to the truss, come down and go back to the truss. It's Z, so that one side connects to the truss, the other side connects to the sheetrock. So there is a tiny little space in there, which is meant for the sound, for the materials to absorb the sound and deaden the sound. So the sheetrock and the truss do not touch.
Now, is that a problem with fire? Like Like a balloon type construction?
No, it's not because it's it's segregated per room, like, so,
Oh, okay.
right? So it doesn't break the 1 hour envelope that each unit is in, and it's UL rated.
Yeah, and the buildings have been designed to be building code, fire safety, fire prevention
I-
compliant. All of that will be worked out at building permit stage, but they've been designed to be such.
That's about all I have.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about how trash and recycling works on a project like this? We saw another multi-story apartment complex and they seem to have trash chutes and compactors. You have some dumpsters out there. So would the resident walk out with their bag of trash and their recyclables and put them in two different dumpsters? And I've lived in, I'll say, the townhouse style with the one-car garage. And the size of those wheeled bins plus your car in there, for me, was too tight. I don't like things near my car. But just how do you handle, there's two streams, the trash and the recycling?
I can hear you.
Again, Tom Daly for the record. So on the apartments, you described it properly. We've located strategically located the dumpsters. The residents will, as you know, as they're going out to work in the morning, throw it in. There'll be a recycling bin and it'll be a trash bin. And they're all located in an enclosure. So, and then a private haul company will come out and take those away. And depending on what they find as they marry, that haul company will be scheduled appropriate. It could be one day, once a week, it could be twice a week. But we tried to get a dumpster location that is pretty short walk. This unit can actually go to here, these two units go to here, and then we have one over here. So, that's how.
Really, I'll say two dumpsters, one for recycling and one for.
Well, one in each pad. I would assume you're gonna have a little 4x4 for each one. Because it's not, it's a fairly small and spread out, but at the end of the day there's no trash chutes in these buildings. We get in those in the much bigger buildings. Essentially, if Ray has indicated, if we had put all 100 into a unit, that's where we start seeing those trash chutes. Out in here, as indicated, it was, the intent is to have your small, have a private hauler. I know in my town, you can actually request a smaller version of that. The big ones, yes, you're right. And even I have a one-car garage. I know where you're saying, but
It's not.
what we've seen before, because these are only 2 bedrooms. So in my town, you can actually, maybe it's more for seniors, right? You can actually ask for a smaller version.
So the people will be
Yeah.
able to
So-
get the small
so-
ones.
Well,
If-
and the architects are much smarter than me. They'll plan that, because obviously I know for a long time recycling, I mean, I don't know about you, but I fill my recycling quicker than I fill my trash. So that does have to go into the overall plan of those garages, and whether we can give you a little extra space at the end of the garage to make a home for that. But
You thought
so that's how it's managed. Yeah, and then you'll have your trash day, you put them out there, the truck comes, bing, bing, pops them all in and off they go. That's how we're looking to manage that.
the heat pumps or whatever the heating units you described are that are per unit. They're not shown on the architectural pretty pictures. Do they go on the back side of the buildings, on the roof? Where do you stick those?
Do you want to go ahead?
Assuming not on the front.
Yeah, so
On there.
we haven't designed that system yet. So it depends on what system we're using, right? So sometimes what we do is we build a bathtub, what we call it. So the roofs go up.
Yeah, you put it up on the roof.
But then you pocket that. So there's actually a flat section which you cannot see. And all the condensers go up there. That's one way to do it. There are magic packs which can go in another place of the building. So we haven't decided which one yet, but the last the last thing we want is, and we
Ugly boxes on the front of
we
it.
can't have all these condensers, sitting all over the ground.
Okay.
And I was just going to note that again, from the applicant's perspective, they want this to be a beautiful community.
Pictures are very nice.
Exactly. There's been a lot of
Sticking them on the,
blood, sweat and tears that have gone into this. We're not going to ruin it by sticking 37 condensers everywhere. So it will be designed, but that typically comes again at building permit stage.
could you talk a little bit about in our 8.8, 17.2, the vision that we had for these type of developments were green building technology and use of renewables being encouraged. I heard about incredible amounts of insulation. What are there other things you considered that in the green building technology, and did you consider solar panels on the roof?
So you're stealing a little bit of my thunder, Commissioner, for my closing argument. But I'm happy to touch on that now.
About it.
No. I'm being playful, of course. So again, 817.2 talks about the vision. And again, I started first with kind of the preamble to that, which is the high quality site design, diversity of uses, which were accompanied two different types of residential uses, the proposed future commercial use, and robust environmental protection standards to enable the highest and best use. That's where I started. Yep. So we covered those. We talked about stormwater. We talked a lot about, we're using rain gardens, we're using underground chambers, so on and so forth. So we've really tried to have a diversity here on this site. When you look at subsection A, developments to accommodate all users with connection to existing infrastructure when feasible. We've got the sidewalks, and it goes on to talk about site-to-site pedestrian connections. We've got the sidewalks going west along North Road to the left of the page, if you will, from our site driveway. We heard from Ray about the different types of accessible units on site. We've heard about the interconnectivity within the site in and of itself, walking trails, sidewalks, so on and so forth. So we believe we've done that. It also talks about recreation facilities, dog run, clubhouse, gazebo, so on and so forth. So we hit the nail on the head, I think, with that subsection as well.
Asking about E.
Green building technology, use of renewable energy techniques. I mean, ultimately, this comes down to the applicant. I don't believe that solar, perhaps it was considered, but it was not appropriate for this site. And then again, when you're talking about green building, things like the insulation you just heard about that you pointed out, that's first and foremost when you're talking about green building. You've also got all of the LID and the green, what I'll call horizontal improvements like the stormwater basins and so on and so forth. So definitely considered, but this is what worked appropriately for the site.
And my last question, when we saw another apartment complex, they included washer and dryer in every unit. Is that part of the plan?
I believe these are in unit. Yes, I'm looking to my team for confirmation. In unit washers and dryers.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave?
What a really nice presentation you guys have put on.
Thank you.
I do have some varied questions. I noticed in the renderings you've given us no rendering of a clubhouse, but you've made mention to it. No renderings of the triplex homes, but you've given us renderings of the others. And I notice your rendering for building 1 on page 20 does not show the fire pad as you show there on that. So you just curious what those are going to look like.
Yep. So again, I'll go backwards. So the fire pad, again, we try to give a realistic view of what the building will look like. It is sometimes not 100%, for the fire pad and whatnot, but I can have Tom talk about that. I think they're just pavers,
So the
right?
fire pad, if you've ever gone to West Farms Mall in the back parking lot, so there are rings that are structurally sound, but they have grass growing on them.
Okay.
So you don't even think about it. And it still allows the water to infiltrate, but it's structurally sound. There's actually stone and these plastic rings, but actually, I think they're putting a big Y on it now, but it's, so aesthetically in the rendering, it will look like grass.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. That answers that one.
Yes.
But again,
On the triplexes, I'm going to look to Ray. I mean, the triplexes ultimately are going to look like the fourplex, just one less unit, correct? Yes. So I mean, again, picking and choosing because there's so many different building types here on site so as not to do a rendering for every single one. If you take the 4-unit cluster, just lop off one of the
Okay.
units, there's your triplex. And then
Even though you went to the trouble to do all the others, I wondered why you hadn't done that one.
Understood. I think it was just economy of scale, just trying to pick the ones that we could really refer to and give the commission a good idea of what to expect on site. And then ultimately the clubhouse, I don't know, we just didn't do a rendering of it, but it will have the same look and feel and design of the rest of the site. And in fact, if you look at kind of the commercial building, which is at that smaller scale, it still has that modern farmhouse feel. And that will be look like, and again, that will be at the rear of the site. So very, very much set back from the street frontage.
Okay. Next question. I notice visitor parking mentioned through the apartments, but I don't see much visitor parking for the townhouses. Did I miss?
Have it? No, Tom is going to talk about it because we talked about that ourselves as
Yeah,
well.
Tom Daly. So one thing is every townhouse you'll be able to park in your driveway also as a visitor. And then we have a cluster of visitor parking located centrally in this area here. And I believe it was 10 spaces located in this area here. So your visitor they can still park in your driveway because it's owner occupied. You'll be able to park there. But then we have 10 spaces located right in the middle here.
It's for, that's a long walk for somebody going to the triplex over at the cul-de-sac. In the middle of winter, it's a little bit of a long walk to go visit
I
the
think
mom that's over in the triplex.
I think there's an opportunity if the commission feels that we need to expand on that. We could put a two parking space. So if the commission thinks that is important, we could do that.
Okay.
That's a pretty, as you can see, just tucking in a little, tucking in a little space. Yeah, a little 2 spaces right there and on the cul-de-sac. If the commission feels that would be pretty easy to accommodate.
Okay. Next question, for entrances and exits, do you only have single car exits at your one spot? Is that only enough for one car to leave and make a left or right turn?
So single line entry and exit?
Yep.
Yes.
Coming out here?
Yes.
Yes.
So at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, when we're all leaving for work at the same time,
Well, I think,
we're gonna be struggling to go left and right.
yeah, obviously that will,
Maybe for a second lane, so
Yeah.
to have a left turn
yeah,
and a right turn leaving?
we can look at it, but I think your reality is, if you think about my street. I leave early. My wife's a teacher. She leaves early. My next door neighbor is retired. So the reality is not that many people in this day and age leave during that same time. It's a kind of a daily flow. But it might,
A lot of people here, so
Yeah.
you're talking
but
152 units, at least one car per unit,
Yeah.
if not two.
yeah, but
37 townhomes, at least one car, if not two.
But very few leave in that peak hour. And you think about my own street. I live at the bottom of several hundred cars. It's pretty sleepy because everybody has different time. A lot of people work remote. The nice thing here is we have a long throat.
Yep.
So we're not back, and the way we design this is we have a long throat. Now, in the end, we have to go to the Office of State Traffic Commission, and if they tell us, hey, you should really have a left and a right there, then we'll do it. It's their control as we enter here.
We have
plenty of, yeah, and we have,
dual exit.
yeah, and we have plenty of room along this thing to locate. If the DOT says we want a left and a right, easy to be done.
Okay.
And Commissioner, again, just looking at Neil is on, so we can have him do the math if need be. But if you look at the site generation table, that
Two.
total in and out, right? So when you're talking about this,
30 cars, but
this keeps going,
30 cars in a row.
but that's over the course of an hour.
Yeah.
That's over the course of an hour. They're not all happening at the same time. So again, just keeping that in mind, you have 15 weekday morning peak. I'm just looking at, for example, you have 15 coming in. So that's 15 cars for an entire hour coming in to the site, and then exiting is 48 over the course of an hour. So yes, there's during that peak hour, which is the busiest hour of the day for the morning, that is going to be a consistent flow, but it's still less than a car per minute. So just something to keep in mind.
But as I said, we have plenty of room.
Yep.
It's not like,
Yeah.
you've seen site plans where they're tucked in, they're tight, and the building is there. Actually, Andrea and I just worked on one where it was really tight and we didn't have a lot. The way we've tucked this building 100 feet back, if we have to add another lane, it would be really easy to do.
Okay.
In reality, you could just do a 30-foot extension.
That's all it would be. You just come up here and you peel, you see it where there's a little
Just-
shop and you just left
Just
and
give them a
right.
chance to
Yeah.
not
Yep.
choke off the left-hand turn.
That's nice. It's a good comment. It's a good comment. We'll have to take a look at that and work with the DOT to see what they think is appropriate.
Yep.
And then have we given any thought to Amazon truck parking? This is a large complex. You're gonna have Amazon trucks coming in and out all day, FedEx, UPS trucks coming in and out all day, DoorDash and Uber Eats
Yep.
vehicles, some advertised, some not, coming in and out all day. Have all these traffic studies taken into account all those people? Knowing that you have 152 units, how many of those people are ordering Uber Eats for dinner or DoorDash or Walmart delivery?
Yeah.
Just more vehicles, more traffic.
Yep.
It's part of our analysis. Now, a lot of that happens over the course of the day. But as Neil indicated, and really what ITD does is they actually go out and count other facilities. Where they're getting the data is they're actually getting real data from other facilities. And that's all built into that system. I mean, the reality is, yeah, residential comes with some of those, the guy coming to fix the, the hot water heater. That's all built into that model. But and clearly with the Amazon world, it's a different world, right?
It's different than it was
Yeah.
Yeah.
a few years ago. It's worse every day.
Yeah.
But really, as Neil indicated, it's peak hour. What the analysis says, if we look at it from peak hour, all the other hours are going to be better than what we look at. Because that's when, as many of us, we're leaving at the time, that's when we get most frustrated about peaking. But it's all built into the model. And that's where that data comes from. Not to mention, when we put the tubes out on the road and got the counts, that's all built into the background traffic too, because we understand what's happening on the background roads. Same thing, all those trucks and vehicles are on that background. So it's built into the background also.
Do you have, I know you have letters of commitments from other people. Do you have a letter of commitment from Eversource that says whatever we build will give you enough power to?
I don't know that we got a.
We don't have that because the first
Because
thing.
you haven't figured out.
Well, yeah, because the first thing you call up, they're gonna say, what's your load? I'm like, I'm a civil engineer.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Right.
So we will, prior to this, and once we figure out what the heat pumps are and the load comes up, we will do that. I will have to say, I know people get frustrated with Eversource, but in the state of Connecticut, it does have a system that we have never been on a project that it wasn't able to be accommodated. Where we do get problems is we do have a will serve letter from the water company, sewer, and then, to be honest, on many sites, gas is the one and that's where I think people went away from it because we kept on getting letters that, they couldn't serve us. So, but we will have to work with Eversource once an electrical engineer gets brought into the team.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I don't think I've ever worked on a development of any kind, residential or otherwise, where Eversource has been an issue. Takes a while to get that approval.
Well, I did one right across from this and I struggled to get power to it and I only got a certain level of power, period.
Yeah.
That was my only choice.
Yeah, I mean,
So
We may have to,
certainly
we might have to.
we'll welcome larger, more.
yeah, sure.
But that's
we'll-
my concern is, are you gonna get enough?
And if necessary, we'll have to work with them to upgrade it because obviously, but my hope is they see this as a customer base and some economics, so they'll work with us, but we really, they won't even talk to us until we pin down the load, right? We got to get the loads.
Yeah, and certainly if we can't get electric, then we're not moving
Yeah.
forward, right? So, and I'm being facetious here, but certainly we'll make that happen one way or another. And unless it changes the use, which it won't, or changes the site layout, which it likely won't, it's not something that would require additional approval. It's just working it out with staff, basically, especially the building official.
Okay. I think the only thing I had was you guys had talked about the dog area. Are you gonna have water, lights, shade for the dog area?
First of all, it's a very small area. It's not like
It's not like a dog.
No. It's the size of like 4 parking spaces,
Couldn't.
No, but that being said, no, I typically will have actually a waste station, let people pick up after themselves. And actually your town consultant suggested we put a few more trees around there to cool it down. But yeah, this is simply just take a small dog out there before you go to work. It's not, If you want to let the dog run, you need to go to a park or
Okay.
something like that. Yeah, it's pretty small. I can tell you the dimensions, but I think it's only probably, I'd have to say 50 by 30 tops. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers my questions, at least for now. Sorry, I took so long.
Okay, I've got a couple of things that are, I guess, I'm considering maybe mechanical here. Several of your drawings, and I'm gonna reference specifically drawing LA2. You show a trailer on pad, which I would assume that's existing, that's not something you're going to construct. Where up in the area where the townhouses are, behind it, unit number 21?
That's probably an existing, just LA2 you're on?
Yeah.
Would you mind if I come over there?
Well,
That's existing.
so that's just,
That'll be removed.
it's gonna be removed.
Yep.
Okay, and kind of,
Over here.
I'm
This one.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then kind of on the same drawing, it appears as you're going to be jogging the rear fence line because I would assume that's an encroachment there, or what's the reason for the jog in the fence line?
Adjacent property is encroaching onto the property. And I think there's already a fence out there today. We'll have to work with the encroachment, but at this point, we're going around that.
That's, then are you gonna actually change the legal description of the property to deflect, to reflect the?
And somebody's encroaching onto our,
Yeah,
yes, they've built onto,
the attorneys will have to work that out.
yeah, so putting the lawyer hat on, this actually happens more often than you'd think it does. Typically, all that does here is it's just an issue to be dealt with, and the courts are very clear. That's a private property issue, neighbor to neighbor. We'll just have to consult with that neighbor. I will say, as I've explained to Ruth, I did try and reach out to that neighbor several times via email to strike up a discussion, but unfortunately never received a response back. I don't know if I just didn't have the correct email, and I couldn't find a number. So we did try and reach out and start that conversation before I think we even filed this application, if I recall, and I was in contact with Ruth about that. But we'll just have that discussion. The point that the commission needs to take away is there will still be a fence there to provide the screening, which there will still be that landscaping that you're showing that will provide a screening. It just may or may not jog. It's really what it comes down to.
and staying in that same area, the townhouses.
Mhm.
I know it was said that there's not a lot of site work required here, but I'm sure there's gonna be some removal. I think it might be advantageous if it worked out for you, rather than trucking the material off-site, is to berm up along that rear property line or on the side, and then put your fencing on top of the berm, which would give you even greater screening.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. One thing we do have is there is a drainage because we want to make sure we're getting water away from here. So there's a swale in the back. So as we cut down in the backyard, it's hard to go down and then back up and build a berm. But what we're doing is we're pulling all the water along here and sending it to the basin so it doesn't go over the property line. So we can't eat into that area with a berm when we're trying to get the drainage out.
Hasn't been mentioned at all, but I'm gonna ask the question. You plan on any phasing on this at all, or you're going to wait till the entire site is completely built before you occupy it at all?
It is common to do, and what I would describe it as, it's correct me, but it's what's called as a rolling phase. So you don't want your trades to leave from a site. You want to continue to roll. So what our experience is, the site work come and get some work in, and immediately you start, getting a foundation in. Then the trade starts going vertical up with the wood. At that time, the foundation person has now moved over to the next one. And you're kind of cleaning things up as you go.
You're gonna start occupying residences.
Additionally, that's what but you get the landscaping in, you kind of, and you can see this can be done you get this parking lot, it can really stand on itself. And then you kind of leapfrog your way around the site. But yeah, the intent is to start paying, renters in here. But what you have to do is we'll get the driveway done, and the final phasing will have to get worked out. But it's that kind of rolling phase, because if we just said, hey, we're gonna do this building, the concrete guy goes to the next job and we'll never see him again. So it's that kind of, yes.
The issues that we run it then is when you're having construction going on while people are occupying it, we usually ask for a construction entrance, something that they're not combining cement mixers with, private vehicles, things to that effect. Tracking pads, that kind of stuff, depending on if you're finished through all your
Standard notes.
construction.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is, and we've said is prior to start of construction, that the applicant provide a logistics plan to the town and talk, because to be honest, I'm just a civil engineer. I'm not building this, but, and it varies. But I would say it's pretty common is part of the logistics plans. You'll get point of contact if there's any problems, where the truck traffic's going off and on, what are the hours of operation, and then even get into logistics of trash removal. And that's a pretty fair request, and we'd be more than happy to do that. And also we want to do that when we finally get the site contractor on board, because they'll give you real information. So I think if the commission is so inclined to condition that a construction logistics plan be a condition of approval prior to the start of construction is totally appropriate.
And we see that often in connection with,
Yeah.
Tom and I are actually working on a number of sites, a pre-con meeting
Yeah.
with staff to ensure that it complies with zoning, building officials okay with it, fire, police, to ensure that there's open access. So that's very typical in many towns. We can do a logistics plan in connection with a pre-con meeting. That'd likely have to happen anyway with a project of this size, so.
Is there any allocated space for personal storage for people, for the occupants there?
Oh, just the apartment itself or the townhome itself?
But is there even in the space itself, do they have a place to store Christmas decorations, anything other than a general closet in the hallway kind of deal?
I looked right, there's closets and so on and so forth that you typically find in apartments of this size. You want to talk about storage?
Yeah, so Ray Sullivan, we don't have kind of separate storage, but the storage we do provide generally is pretty adequate. And so for instance, there's always walk-in closets, there's closets in the hall, there's closets when you first come in.
If somebody owns a bicycle, they got to bring it up into their apartment?
Do we have bike racks on site?
Exterior.
Exterior bike rack?
Exterior bike racks, and we will have some interior bike storage. We will not allow EV bikes, so electric bikes.
Yeah, so again, that was just to recording. We'll have exterior bike racks and some interior bike storage, no EV bikes.
How about the parking spaces?
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Parking spaces, how many, do you provide them? I'm sorry. If we go through
EV parking.
Are you asking about EV parking, Commissioner?
Just parking spaces in general, is it for two people or is it for one person, one car?
Do you want to pull the ratio? I'm going to ask Tom to just pull the ratio of the parking. I mean, we meet what's required in the regulations.
The townhouses,
That's all in the drawings.
Tom Daly, for the townhouses, we got one in the garage and then one in the driveway, plus the visitor parking space for the apartment. We have, your regulations require one space for a one bedroom and 1.5 spaces for a 2-bedroom or more. So we are required to have on the apartments, we're required to have 180 spaces. We have 180 spaces. So that's per year reg. The townhouses stand on their own.
One final question I had. Your drawing for the water line coming in, you're stopping it at the driveway entrance. So how do you plan to service the commercial property with water?
That will, if.
Very astute, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
If required, that will be part of the site plan application when we come in with the commercial to extend it.
For lateral extension?
Correct. Correct.
Go ahead.
Huge project. We haven't heard anything from Lenny, have we?
What?
Len,
Yeah, he did review that.
oh, we did.
Yeah.
Miss it.
He,
He sends a letter. He doesn't send a letter anymore?
You did send the letter. It was a combined letter with the wetlands application.
Okay. Okay, well,
And there
And Commissioner,
a lot of revisions, right? You guys revised the plan.
yeah, so we received, and again, part of my closing comments, but we're good. We'll do it now. In terms of town staff comments, we received basically combined engineering comments at the wetlands application stage. So we revised the plans at that time and responded to all of them. And I believe we got sign off. There was an email response that said, you've addressed all of our engineering concerns. We did have a pre-application meeting at this very table with, I think, every person on town staff, except for maybe Mr. D'Amato. But we had a round table with everyone in staff and said, here's what our plan is. Please tell us how we can make it better. And a lot of what we received the comments we received at that meeting are in the plan before you. Mr. Christopher met with the fire marshal to run through the plans. I think it was post-submission, but obviously pre-public hearing, to make sure that the fire marshal was okay with the plans, to talk about, EV bikes and things like that. And everything that the fire marshal told us was generally, you're okay. And anything else has been incorporated into the plans. And then last but not least, I'm not speaking for them, but planning staff, I believe, again, not speaking for them, I believe with the materials we submitted today, which was really just the master concept plan and working through a couple of the proposed approval conditions, we've satisfied all staff comments. So from our perspective, there are no outstanding staff comments. We've gotten the blessing, so to speak, from everyone in town.
make sure that Lenny saw everything, that's all.
Yes, his memo was dated January 15th.
Okay,
He had no additional comments or exceptions.
perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Does any other commissioner have any other questions of the applicant?
The plans, I didn't see mention of where the electric vehicle charging stations would be. Are they on the plans somewhere?
Yes, Tom Daly for the record, and actually that was a town staff comment. As you know, the
Wiring has to be there.
correct,
Not-
but we've gone beyond that and we've shown, yeah, sorry, you gotta get
Right here.
glasses or something like that.
No, so Commissioner, for example, if
So
you look
we
at,
took a stab at where we thought they would be appropriate to be located.
Yeah.
But yes, the EV infrastructure has to be put in, but actually we went ahead and actually called out the appropriate spaces for those.
yeah, so Commissioner, if you look at, for example, L8, sheet LA1, you will see, I mean, you need a magnifying glass at a certain point. You will see, for example, just behind building 3, which is this building here, you see 2 parking spaces right here, for example, that say EV. It's very, very tiny. Oh, thank you, Mike. There you go.
Yeah.
And those are dispersed
I
through the
can
site.
see them there and I see, up and I see the bike rack.
Yep, they're spread out.
They're near the clubhouse. That's good.
Anything else? Staff have any further questions of the applicant?
No, we've been fielding responses back and forth for a while and, yeah. I'm satisfied.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just a big thank you to staff. I think I've been calling Ms. Calabrese and Mr. Tomato on and off for weeks just to make sure we had everything the way staff needed it and to comply with the regulations. So a big thank you to them fielding those calls.
Could you please hand me the sign-in sheet? Okay, so this is a public hearing. I will now take public comments. First is Paul Anderson.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. I think I'm gonna set a precedent. I don't have anything negative to say. But my biggest thing was sidewalks, and you've done a fantastic job on sidewalks. That's one of my biggest things with every development and every subdivision. I absolutely think it's atrocious if we accept doing sidewalks. I think it's a waste of time. So I'm impressed with the sidewalks. Very pleased to see water come down North Road. It doesn't solve all our problems, but a lot of money went into that sewer system on North Road with the idea of development, and without the rest of the infrastructure, you don't get development. This is a possibility of getting some development, which we could use to ease our residential tax burden. Okay, but I do have one question. And that's on the townhouses. You say they're going to be sold. Are they gonna be sold in the form of a condominium where the outside structure is still owned by the company and they own the insides?
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to confirm process, sorry, procedure person here, or procedure police, if you will. Do you want us taking notes and responding to everything at the end or responding to comments individually?
We currently only have 3 people signed up to speak, so I guess
Okay.
address them individually.
You'd like, Mr. Chairman, sorry, Ralph.
Absolutely. Ralph Sylvester. Yeah, so the way we kind of see this going forward is there'll be an HOA, and it probably will be a kind of a joint HOA, right, with a rental portion on this side, and then the condominiums on this side. So yeah, so in a condominium complex, right, you don't own the envelope, you own the inside of the unit, and that'll be the same just with the townhomes and everything like that. That will just kind of share the kind of the burden of the expense and things like that. And also with it being such a sort of a joint site with the access and everything like that, it's kind of nice, the idea of having people that live here be able to come meander over and enjoy some of the amenities over here, and also people over here be able to walk over and enjoy some of the grounds.
Yeah, but I guess my question comes down to maintenance of the property.
Mhm.
So that would be HOA?
Yes.
Maintain the
Correct.
property.
Yes, yep.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
cut
from like snow removal, trash removal, all those things.
it all. And any of your retention basins and the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Usually gets ignored by HOAs.
Yeah, I mean, what we found, in real world practice, being separated causes too much of this, right? So we like to have it be an actual true community with, as Tom has said, 2 different neighborhoods. But everybody kind of just enjoying the amenities of the entire parcel together.
Yeah, but my whole thought process is about the actual maintenance.
I understand.
Because
Absolutely.
deferred maintenance means we're ignoring it. That doesn't work. So real maintenance is important. Now, that would be a contractual thing. Yep. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Is it Victor Alvarez?
Ontiveros.
Alvarez, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, for the record, Victor Ontiveros, I am on 197, shall be your neighbor. I got a couple of questions about the traffic. No, Neil said something about it, but I don't think you guys realize how much traffic I create when I want to turn into the house in one car. So from there, like if I wait, let's say 10 seconds, there's 50 cars behind me. And that's one of the things that if we don't have a left turning lane for that, the traffic probably, if you have 2-3 cars waiting to turn, there's probably gonna go all the way to the property. Because like I said, I've been there, what, 7 years? If me and my wife are right behind and 2 cars need to go in, it creates the traffic jam. And that's literally just for 1 car or 2. So in 30 cars spaced out, if you don't have a left turn lane, it is gonna be. Keeping talking about traffic, school buses. I don't know if you guys even thought about that. My kids get picked up in there going from east to west. So I'm pretty sure there are gonna be a lot of kids in that complex. Are they gonna go into the complex to pick up the kids, or they're gonna be right there? No.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to respond to that? Mr. Alvarez?
Ontiveros, yeah.
Alvarez. So in terms of the school children and pickup, typically what happens is we just coordinate that with the Board of Education post-approval. There are some towns where the boards just don't want to go into the community. Tom and I were just talking about that. They just don't want to circulate within the community.
stand.
Yeah, certainly. So we will have a place where they will come to the front of the site as they stop at many other houses. And the law is that when the school bus stops and the stop bar goes out, traffic needs to stop on both sides. Ultimately, that's at the board's discretion. In terms of traffic, I just want to understand through you, Mr. Chairman, the concern you live at, you said 197 North Road, 190.
From west to east, if I'm turning
Yeah.
to the house, 10 seconds will create 15 car time. And that's in a regular time of the day. Morning, it will be a lot more. At night, absolutely not, because there's no traffic. I think after 6 o'clock or so, everything starts to diminish. After 8 o'clock, I can walk out and do a fire, and, you know, literally in the middle of the road.
So Counselor, it's a single lane road at that point.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is obviously if you're heading, east, and you're trying to make a left-hand turn across
There-
westbound traffic, there's not really a lot of room for vehicles to drive around you.
Correct. And what they call, that's called a bypass lane, right?
Yep.
Where you have a large, and where we're working with Neil and our team, we're doing a lot of that right now. Instead of a full turn lane, they're asking for a little thing, just enough for you to scoot by and maybe right now there's not enough room. Your tires off the road. So that little strip widening is something we're doing a lot of. As opposed to a full, DOT is not super thrilled with full left-hand turn lanes because it hurts the through movement. So I could anticipate that, once again, this is DOT, that when we go to OSTA, they may potentially recommend widening the shoulder to allow people to scoot by. That's pretty standard operating, but once again, it's their road and that'll be a response they come back to us. And if the town is, your town police or your legal traffic authority is copied on all that correspondence, so you'll be a prey of, and we'll continue to keep road. But if it goes that way, that's probably what's going to happen.
I would recommend maybe being proactive if they do look at that, extend it far enough to the commercial property as well. Otherwise you'll be coming back it over again.
And if there's not enough shoulder there, people will stack in behind the cars. So that's where that kind of extended shoulder is it's been a long time. This project is, if the DOT tells us we want a full left-hand turn, we have to do it. But the reality is that bypass lane is really the tool we've been using on most projects.
And Mr. Chairman, what we can do is we can specifically, when you're saying be proactive, it's specifically bring it up to OSTA. So that when we're going through that OSTA approval process, we can certainly do that.
Can I just ask a question on that?
When we finish with public, we'll come back in. Okay.
And one thing about, one thing about the school kids, I would say is, remember, it's mostly 2 bedrooms in these units. So we found that there will be school kids, and we'll coordinate with the Board of Ed on that.
I'm just worried about the traffic, like I said,
Yeah.
but
No.
when my kids get picked up, with 197 going west, they already have cars behind.
No, and we appreciate your comments, and then our traffic engineer is listening. So I'm sure he's taking notes. So thank you very much for your comments.
The last question that I had was about, like you guys know, we have water wells. My water wells on that side, will that be impacted by all the construction and all the storm, let's say, house that you have and all that?
And this is your house here, right?
To the right.
Just beyond the.
No, all the stormwater is going that direction.
So that would be.
No, you actually have a very large buffer. This is actually all wetlands. That's probably almost 200 feet of wetlands that can't be built on.
Yep.
So if that's, that's about 200 feet of wetlands, we can't build on that. And all the water is going in that direction.
So there will be no fences built in there and everything.
No, this is all
natural.
all this area here is to be left natural as you would see it today. And then, so you're right in this house here, this little carve out here. So where you see dark green in here, there's no clearing, no change there.
Thank you. Kim Anderson.
Good evening. Kim Anderson, I live on Bass Drive, Enfield, Connecticut. I also have property in East Windsor behind my house. So therefore I do pay taxes in East Windsor. You're speaking about the wetlands on that corner. You're saying that you can't build anything there? and that there's a brook that is, water will come down through those retention ponds. But also I heard one of you speak about dumping into the brook. That brook goes onto my property. Could you please address that for me? Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask Mr. Daly to, but just to staff, can you pick up the recording when members of the public are?
I was actually reading my mind, that she might be hard to hear.
Yeah, so just through you, Mr. Chairman, just to pick up and ensure we're getting an accurate record and transcript.
And would you mind coming up to the podium to? Are you satisfied with all the other questions?
I think you're a little softer spoken. That's why I was a little concerned about the recording.
Can you just point where you're?
Thank you.
This is a little difficult.
Yeah, sorry, this is Vance Drive up here. Oh, right here, you're right here, okay, just to get myself oriented.
That's my first concern. I do have something to read, but I just want to go through some of the things that we spoke about today. I'm happy to see that this tree line is not coming down. If I'm looking at this correctly. No, I'm not.
To the proposal.
Yes, thank you very much. Alrighty. So these trees are not coming down. However, this is all coming down, and these trees are 50 to 60-year-old established trees. Part of the reason that's a problem is, besides the beauty of the area, is there is extensive winds that come through here in spring and summer. So you can't have a pop-up anything in any of these area backyards. The winds come through. So you're going to knock all of that down. It's going to knock out that wind barrier. Yes, there are trees going to be planted there. However, 10, 15 years for them to grow, okay?
And there will also be a solid fence there too.
And a fence, which is
Right.
6 feet.
Yep.
These are 3 stories, including the garage with a gable, higher than 6 feet. Okay, so everybody on this side is going to be looking straight over and all that. I know the lights are coming down, still going to see it. Okay, so 6 feet, even with a retention, isn't really going to do anything as far as I'm concerned. Density, and am I to understand this is 29 acres? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And 13 acres are developed? Is that true? Is that correct? Roughly? Okay. So if we were to do, let's say there's 189. Let's conservative, say 400 people, conservatively, living here, including children. So we're looking at a density per acre of 30 if it's 13 acres, and 13 per acre if it's the lesser of the two. Am I making sense with that? So the population density within a 1 acre area is rather high. You're looking at roughly 1 acre properties here. 30 people per acre, conservatively, it's a lot. This is not a bad idea. It's actually beautiful. It's in the wrong place. Okay? Especially this. So high up against an established single-family area, which, by the way, are all 1 story for the most part, a couple of 2 stories, mostly 1 story. That's a problem, in my opinion. Okay? That's that. What I'd like to do is read something, if I may. I have a petition that I wanted to submit yesterday to the town. Unfortunately, we were closed. Town was closed and lost the opportunity to do that. That petition, I believe, would have forced a 2/3 vote as opposed to a majority. Nevertheless, I brought it. And I just want to give you some stats on that. Of the properties that are directly abutting the development, directly abutting, okay? Y'all know what that is. Only 5 didn't sign. 3 of them were vacant. Couldn't contact them. The other 2, we couldn't get hold of, them weren't home. The result was 70% signed. Every single person we talked to, and we went door to door, signed the petition. We have signatures from over 40% of the properties within 500 feet, but most notably, and I really hope that you will take this into consideration, is 100% of the properties that we were able, the people in the properties, the owners that we were able to speak to, sign the petition. Not one person said no. About half weren't aware of it. Not one person said no. And quite frankly, the majority were not happy. Not because they were against building or development, but because of the density, the location, the abutment, trees, the wetlands. This is wetland farmland. The proposal is to have this changed into high-density housing with a zoning change. We all know that. Nice plan. Not in this place, not in this area. It's not conducive. It's incompatible with the neighborhood character, the density, the high density of it. It's very incompatible. I love sidewalks too. I think they're great. I wish we had sidewalks on Bass Drive. We don't. Sidewalk here goes nowhere. So unless you're planning on putting sidewalks everywhere on an industrial zone businesses, industrial area here, this goes to Steel Road. There's a auto dealership here. Well, it's a great sidewalk. It's not going anywhere. Okay. The traffic and public safety, I think, was covered very well tonight. What I didn't see was Mullen Road here, which turns into Steel. What I heard was we're going right and left on 140 and also down Wells Road. This is the main way to get to Hazard Avenue to do your shopping. Not everybody's going to shop in East Windsor. It's just not how it works. A lot of people are going to go up here through Steel and up to Hazard, where all the restaurants and businesses are. So that's a concern, big concern. This is a one-lane road. Very simple. I think the environmental impact of large-scale construction was also a problem. And finally, the inconsistency with the POCD, which is the town's 2026 Plan of Conservation and Development regarding sustainable growth and density. Not sure it's compliant with that. So with that said, I don't believe it belongs here. I believe it belongs somewhere. I don't believe this is a good spot for it. And finally, I want to say one thing before I forget. Just because these are for sale does not mean they're going to be owner occupied unless it's stated in the contract. And I'm not familiar with that. I have no idea. These could be rentals. It could be Airbnb. We could see people coming in and out. There's a lot more traffic going on here with the per person per acre than is being talked about. And thank you. I appreciate your time.
Want me to respond, Mr. Chairman, or do you want me to wait and see?
If you feel you'd like to address anything that was said.
I would, although I defer to the commission if you want to see if any, I know members of the public have been waiting.
I was the last person that signed up, so I was just
They
gonna,
have to sign up in order to speak.
we'll open it. I will give the others the opportunity, but if you'd like to make a statement, go right ahead.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go a little bit backwards. And again, I say this with all due respect, but I do have to put on my lawyer hat for a second. So the protest petition that was just circulated, certainly you can look to Mr. D'Amato for that, but Public Act 2025-1, House Bill 8002 that was just passed last year. the new housing bill, as everyone's calling it, or the newest housing bill, because there's been a couple in the last few years, essentially nullified the protest petition. Frankly, and I wrote an article on this that addresses this. They took the protest petition, they increased the requirement of property owners that need to sign the protest petition, and they eliminated the supermajority vote. So all it does is just submit a petition in opposition to the zone change into the record. And again, that's not me, that's state law, and that was effective on January 1st. So again, I appreciate the neighbors' contribution, but it ultimately does not trigger a supermajority vote, and you can look to staff to confirm that from a legal perspective. And I'm going a little bit out of order, but there was a lot in Ms. Anderson's comments that I want to address. Rentals versus ownership. It is illegal for the zoning commission to control rental versus ownership. It's a law in the Common Interest Ownership Act. There's a number of Fair Housing Act implications there as well. So we are representing to the commission that the plan is for these to be for sale and the plan is for these to be rentals. But if the market changes in 2 years and no one wants to buy townhomes and the plan and the use and everything stays the same and it ultimately becomes a rental, that's beyond the commission's purview. And again, I say this just with all due respect, that's just not what zoning does. It doesn't control ownership versus rental. Population density. And I was just trying to look in the towns.
That was more.
No, ma'am.
No, I.
Wait until she finishes.
Thank you. I was trying to pull up in the zoning regulations whether there's a definition on family, but generally zoning commissions are not looking at population density per acre. They're looking at the number of bedrooms or the number of units. They're not looking at how many people are in each bedroom. And in fact, you see that most when you're looking at the definition of family. Most towns will not regulate how many blood-related individuals can live together because we're just not looking at population density. The way the commission controls that is for setting standards on unit count, parking, so on and so forth, but you're not looking at the number of people. Environmental impact, that's actually very interesting because all you need to do is do a quick Google search for environmental implications of multifamily construction. It is very well established, and again, you can look to Mr. D'Amato and Ms. Calabrese for confirmation on this. Building a higher density multifamily community is much more environmentally friendly than building, let's say hypothetically, which I'm not conceding there will be 400 human beings living on this site, but let's say hypothetically there were 400 human beings and you were going to say two people each separate and want to build houses. 200 houses, even if you're on quarter-acre lots, that is a much less environmentally friendly. It has a greater climate impact than building a higher density community because you are combining resources, you are elevating, you're building up instead of building across. So you're impacting open space, impervious coverage, stormwater, so on and so forth. So from an environmental perspective, this is much friendlier. And Commissioner, is it Gobin? When you were asking earlier about the vision and you're talking about the environmental impacts, right, the green infrastructure and everything, just building multifamily kind of hits on that vision to begin with. The concern about visual impacts, and listen, I hear this in every application I do, primarily the multifamily applications I do, and especially when we're talking about higher density multifamily, excuse me. Zoning is not a promise that you will never see anything change around you. Zoning is not a promise that you are never going to see your neighbor. You have to live, as a fire marshal in another town I worked in said once, you have to live around people. You're going to have some visual impacts, but what the regulations do here is they say, let's mitigate that by providing some type of buffer. We will do a 6-foot fence, and we're doing a deciduous and evergreen buffer here to really establish that. Regarding the existing trees in the area, I mean, I will look to Mr. Daly on this, but our intent is not to take out perfectly good mature trees to then replant the same tree at a smaller scale. I believe we're going to try and keep what we can, as we always do, and then augment that with additional buffering and do what we need to do for grading and so on and so forth. So I want to make that clear. And then lastly, and Mr. Chairman, I say this with all due respect, but I do a lot of multifamily housing, and it is a passion of mine to ensure that there is housing choice and housing diversity. This is a great project, but not here. I hear it in every single town. And I understand we have been extraordinarily sensitive, or we've tried to be, to the neighbors. We've tried to design a site sensitively, and I am not discounting the concern of the neighbors who have invested in their homes, typically the largest investment a person makes in their lifetime. I'm not discounting that. But I do want to say everyone needs somewhere to live, and everyone deserves to have a choice of where they're going to live. And simply saying that this is great, but put it elsewhere, if every zoning commission I was before listened to that, we would never have multifamily anywhere other than maybe under the underpass or an industrial zone. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek a bit, but I'm not that far off from being accurate. So I excuse the passion, if you will, but it's what I hear every day. And then last but not least, the Mullen Road traffic. Again, I'm going to look to Mr. Olinsky if the commission wants clarification on this, but when Mr. Olinsky was talking about the traffic distribution on site, he talked about the percentages that are going west on North Road, east on North Road, and then he said there was a smaller percentage, I think he said it was 10 to 15% that are using the smaller nearby roadways, which I believe, if you look in our traffic study, includes Wells Road and Mullen Road. So while we may not have called it out specifically, it was, Neil, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was included in our overall study. Is that correct, Neil?
Yes, that is correct. We did analyze and estimate some traffic using going up Mullen Road, Steel Road. So yes, that is part of our traffic study.
Thank you. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, regarding POCD compliance, I'll touch on that in my closing comments. The commission knows this well, and I too sit on a commission and I helped write my town's POCD. POCDs are very important planning documents. They are guidance documents through which the town proceeds. You need to have one in order to receive certain amounts of funding. They are important. I'm not discounting them. They're advisory only. Moreover, and we've referred in detail, if you look at the last couple pages of my January cover letter, we further a number of goals in the POCD, including in particular, mixed use development along this corridor. I mean, if that's not a hole in one, I don't know what else is. So I'll touch on that again at my closing comments. Thank you.
I was kind of keeping a mental note. There was two things I was going to mention, but you did actually, our POCD specifically calls out Route 5 and 140 as the planned commercial development multifamily. Those were the spots in the POCD that picked as the prime locations for this.
Yes, exactly.
There was a mention about Airbnb. We do have specific zoning regarding Airbnb. It's not allowed only in the business area. It has to be permitted. So somebody cannot just arbitrarily throw their apartment up on Airbnb. Once we find out, there's a cease and desist for anything like that.
And that's a very hot topic in land use law over the last several years. I'm sure I belong on I am a member of the planners listserv. Every couple of months, you see an email come through from a planner in one of our 169 towns saying, what do you guys do to regulate Airbnbs? And everyone chimes in. We will, of course, be bound to comply with the other applicable zoning regulations. So certainly we can make that known. If it makes the commission feel more comfortable, we can ensure that residents are notified, hey, you can't Airbnb your apartment, but that's almost too much of a belt and suspenders because we have to comply with it anyway. But there cannot be a prohibition on, I am Jane Doe and I live in this townhome and I'm going overseas for a 1-year position at a university or whatever it may be. No one can prevent me. And in fact, I think there's Fair Housing Act implications to renting out my unit so it's not sitting empty for the next year. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Can you stop that, please? Just briefly, but I'll be done.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I take exception to the not in my backyard comment. That's not what I said. I said it was not appropriate for the location that it's at because of that particular section that up against the fence. When speaking about people who are owning the house, I understand the Fair Housing Act quite familiar with it. I'm not speaking in terms of legalese. I'm speaking in terms of, oh, it's great. People are going to own these houses, these townhouses, and they're going to take good care of them because they invest in the homeownership. They have a right to rent it out. there's no guarantee that because somebody buys something that it's going to be maintained properly. Hence the HOA. No guarantee that that's gonna go well either.
I don't think that needs, unless you feel compelled to respond.
I'll just say, Mr. Chairman, for what it's worth, it's the same with any single family, multifamily, commercial development, retail develop, no guarantees. That's why you have the zoning enforcement process at the town level, should you need to enforce something in the application.
And I would also say that it's the responsibility of the tenant, if they're, unhappy with their HOA, that they need to bring it up with their HOA. Okay. And that was all that's who signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this topic?
Just me.
Let me, ma'am, okay, could you come up to the podium?
Well, they were saying.
Yes, could you please?
I'm Sue McMurray. I live at 32 Bass Drive, right in here somewhere, on the pool, in Enfield. Let me just start by saying my preference is that I don't have this in my backyard, but I do understand that there's a need for housing and everything. And I came to the wetlands meeting and you guys seem to have done a great job and the buildings are beautiful. And I'm happy to hear that you're not going to tear all these trees down. I've lived in my house for 35 years. I've watched the what used to be farmland turn into kind of woods as the trees have grown. And it does provide a nice privacy to us. So I'm happy if you're not going to tear down all those trees. My big issue with this is the height of the buildings. The 4-story apartment buildings, I've driven ever since I saw the plan. I've driven around East Windsor, Enfield, I've driven around towns, nowhere except for when I went to the UConn campus and saw the big dorm buildings that were 4 stories high. Did I see, multifamily buildings that were that high? The 55 plus community that's on 140 close to Route 5, I was thinking, well, maybe that's 4 stories. Nope, that's 3 stories. And they're surrounded by business, not single family homes, single family homes, single family homes, single family homes. They're surrounded by business and they're only 3 stories high. That's my big beef. The 4 stories and the apartment buildings and the fact that these townhouses that are going to be looking right into my pool are 3 stories high. If the townhouses were 1 or 2 and the apartments were 2, I'd have much less of an issue with it. It just seems out of character for the town, for the area. I get that we need housing. That just seems like not the right housing for the area. Beautiful presentation. I do think the buildings are beautiful. I just think they're too high.
Like to respond?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant. And I believe it was Ms. McMurray, correct? So certainly understand the concern about height. I mean, at this point, what we can say is 2 things. We've complied with the regulations. The PCD allows a building of up to a maximum of 4 stories. And of course, the commission is well aware of this, but the buildings on site that are 4 stories are the apartments to the west of the site, which as Mr. Daly explained, we've tried to sensitively design the site so that we're putting the taller buildings the furthest away from, in particular, the residential, single-family residences to the north on Bass Drive. So, and we've done this purposely, right? So we've put in that 100 feet from the roadway to the first building. We've clustered them in 4 to reduce the impact of 1 or 2 massed buildings. And then I'm asking Mr. Daly, the length or the distance, if you will, from the back of building 4 to here, which as you can see there's still a wooded area there, is about 250 feet. So we've purposely kind of clustered the apartments on that side to lessen the impact in terms of height, visual impact, so on and so forth. This area over here, 3 stories. We could have gone up to 4 stories there, right? We could have done additional apartments in that area and gone up to 4, but out of interest and insensitivity to the neighbors, we've tried to keep that lower, and we do have the 3 feet. We've tried to lessen that impact, and I'm not going to try and parrot what Ray so eloquently said, but lessen that impact and make these look residential, because they are. Townhomes are residential. Sometimes there's a disconnect with that. But again, with the buffering and the landscaping, the photometric plan that provides for no light trespass and things like that, we've done our best to mitigate impacts in a way that still allows us to really just for this to pencil out and to be able to be built. So that's the only thing I'm not discounting it. I just want to make sure the commission's aware. We purposely put the taller buildings where they're located for this very reason. We were trying to be sensitive to members of the public.
You raised your hand. Would you like to sign up and speak?
Not a speech or anything, just more of a question.
That's okay.
Just want you on your record, that's all. Would you please speak at the podium? There's a microphone there, that'll make it easier for everybody to hear you.
I am Padma Sundaram. I live in 103 Steel Road. A lot of the questions and concerns I had have also been addressed, but I don't live on Bass Street, and one of my biggest concerns is that I have a very young daughter, and I'm going to be adjacent to some of the much taller buildings. I wanted to know, like, would occupants of these apartment buildings be able to see into my backyard when my child is playing? I know surrounding me is also a lot of young family homes, and privacy was a huge concern for me as well. And then the second thing is, I know we've talked about traffic, but I also echo that I am very concerned about the traffic, and I'm not sure waiting and seeing after occupants are here for the DOT to then evaluate and adjust. Who knows how long that will take, how long it'll be until implementations, if they are there, is an appropriate solution. Like, I know we talked about the data, but from just real life experience, it takes a very long time during rush hour. And when you're trying to get home for that 1 hour before your child gets to bed, like that 30-minute wait is excruciating. And to think that like it could possibly get worse, or especially if I'm on call and I need to be in the hospital within 20 minutes, like I don't have that extra 10 minutes to afford waiting at a stop sign. And I understand like it's not within the purview, but I think there really needs to be a very solidified plan in place that we all, because we're all going to be impacted by this. And this would be regardless if it was a multifamily home, a single family home, regardless if there's an influx of 200 people, I think we need to be prepared. So those are my two prior biggest concerns. Thank you.
Should have my iWatch on to count my steps. So again, for the record, Andrea Gomes, counsel for the applicant, the wait and see regarding DOT. So just to explain through you, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the public, how this works. So, and I am not the traffic engineer, that would be Neil, but the ultimate conclusion, which we summarize in our cover letter and which is more detailed in the actual traffic report, is that the proposed community will have a minimal impact or no adverse impacts on the surrounding roadway network. That is kind of the benchmark that we want to get to before we submit an application. If we are, at least myself personally, if I get a traffic report on my desk pre-application and it's not looking very good, we're going to have a significant conversation before we file. So, and I know especially SLR is very good about that. So before we even get to DOT, the position of our experts, Mr. Sullivan at SLR, Mr. Olinsky at SLR, was the proposed community without any improvements, minimal adverse impact. SLR then takes it a step forward and says, what can we do? What is within our control to improve? And half the time it improves existing conditions. It's not even necessary to really absorb the impact of what's being proposed. What can we do to improve existing conditions from a traffic standpoint? What's within our jurisdiction to offer, or within our power to offer to the commission? That's where you get the vegetation, the trimming of vegetation at the site driveway to ensure appropriate sight lines and safe movements in and out of the site. That's where you get the signal timing improvements, which literally means the time that your lights are red versus yellow versus green and so on and so forth, which until you really think about it, you don't realize how much of a domino effect it has down an entire major corridor. One signal traffic or signal timing change at one end can totally impact traffic on the other end. And I didn't really realize that until this became my day-to-day life. So we've proposed that, but ultimately we are hamstrung in what OSTA, CONDOT, allows us to do, because this is the State Route 140, and CONDOT does what a lot of state agencies do, which is we're not going to talk to you until we get zoning approval, or until you have zoning approval. And then we go to the zoning commission. The zoning commission says, well, how do we know that CONDOT's not going to do X, Y, and Z, or CONDOT's going to want that? So we're in a chicken and the egg problem. So at this point, it's now become standard practice, whether it's some type of DEEP sign off, CONDOT sign off, whatever you want to say. You can certainly look to staff, is we get our zoning approval, we explain to the commission, and what we always try to do, which is what we did here, is say, even if CONDOT says no bypass lane or no signal time, we're still okay here. We still meet the appropriate standards, relying on our experts. But when we take it that additional step to say, what can we do to offer to the commission, things that CONDOT will sign off on, that we really have our hands tied. We can proactively, as you suggested, Mr. Chairman, bring up these suggestions to CONDOT. And my understanding, I'll look at Tom and Neil, they're very receptive to comments from the local traffic authority and zoning commission. So if we go to CONDOT or OSTA and say, the commission was very interested in the potential for a bypass lane, they often listen if we meet the appropriate metrics. And now I'm getting a little bit beyond my wheelhouse, but that's always been my understanding, is we can only do so much at the local level because the state's the state. We can do what we can to be proactive and offer things that we know will likely happen, such as signal timing improvements, but we can't do much more beyond that. But, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but the point being, we're okay without any of these CONDOT improvements according to the appropriate standards, the ITE manual that you heard Mr. Olinsky talk about, and so on and so forth. But we're going to take it that step forward and try and be more proactive with OSTA when we talk to them about some of these improvements. Do you have anything? I played engineer for a second? Okay, good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to be clear that you understand is that they have to get approval from the state on their traffic study before they construct anything. So it's not they build it and then they look at what's happening with the traffic at that point. The state has a whole department that reviews all this stuff and will make recommendations that they will have to either follow or they won't build. It's not, that's plain and simple. Whatever the state tells them they have to do if they want to construct it.
And the only wait and see is that we can't promise to do anything within the state roadway because the DOT may or may not bless it. That's the catch-22 I mentioned.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to?
Just a question to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Once the zoning is changed, and let's say the DOT denies any changes, the zoning has been changed. They can't build what they proposed to build, but they own the property.
The DOT cannot stop them from building this. Is that what you're referring to?
Maybe I misunderstood.
The improvements, if the DOT recommends road improvements, they have to make them. If they decide we're not going to make the road improvements, then they cannot construct it.
That's what I was referencing.
Okay.
So the zoning change would have already happened, correct? This is after the zoning.
Correct.
Okay. So once that zoning change happens, and let's say that's the scenario that comes forward, they go back to the drawing board and start over with a new development that looks possibly nothing like that. Is that correct?
If they do that, then we would be sitting here once again, following the exact same application process all over.
This is their proposal, but it could.
They cannot change it unless they come back before us.
That's just what I wanted to clarify. Yes. Thank you.
Agree, Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah, to the extent there are any changes to the things that are pertinent to the planning and zoning commission, to the Wetlands Commission. That happens a lot of times where DOT will say, we want you to do X, Y, and Z, and it may or may not have a greater impact on wetlands. We would just have to go back and get a revised approval. But you're correct, Mr. Chairman, if we don't get our OSTA approval, it's kind of a don't pass go, don't collect $100. We have to go through the process. And I'll tell you, by the time we get to OSTA approval and we've secured our local approvals and we've gone through the expense of designing the site, doing the public hearings and everything, I personally haven't seen an applicant walk away from something as minimal as like restriping for a bypass lane, right? That's usually not the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's really when you're talking about much grander changes or improvements for the most part. But yes, if anything substantive changes, we'd have to come back to this commission.
Sir, hold on. If you want to speak, you have to come sign up, please. Well,
I just had a question.
wait, 1 second.
I had a question.
Please identify yourself for the record.
I'll do it up here.
Okay.
Okay, I had a question. Did you get the approval from
Sir,
the?
could you please identify yourself for the record?
My name's Ralph Faber.
Thank you.
Okay, did you get the approval already for the wetlands?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yep, December 3rd, I believe it was.
Okay, my question is to you people is why would you want to have this, what would be your point of having the land? If that's just an agricultural town. I hate to see, every time I see the solar panels up or another land spot cleared, doesn't that bother you that this was an agricultural town? And now it's gonna turn like Manchester is. It's gonna be over conditioned, and I don't see why there's a shortage of housing. There's no shortage of housing. That it's just doesn't want to make money. And to me, I hope you deny this because it's supposed to be an agricultural town, and your agricultural land shrinking. Even if that was just abandoned land, it still could have been agricultural land. And I can see at one time Connecticut had no trees; it was mostly agriculture. But now it's getting into a metropolitan, from Boston all the way down. And you got to stop this building. It's nonsense. That's my opinion. And you get on Wells Road, you know how hard that is to go on there. Come on. Have a good day.
Okay.
All right.
Is that one more time through?
Tyler Monska with 12 Bass Drive. I have 3 questions. I'll keep it pretty quick. The first question I had was regarding a secondary driveway to the site regarding emergency vehicle access. I just am unsure, or it just seems like one driveway to public access for 189 residential units seems a bit inadequate. My second question would be the underground stormwater chambers. And I'm questioning whether or not there's like a maintenance plan or any type of inspection plan in place. And if there's any example projects where these have been successful over like a longer period of 10, 15, or 20 years. And my third question is, I believe there's a an active petroleum line. I think like on the center of the western half, and questioning if there is any type of like monitoring in place or preventative measures to observe and like reduce like any type of damage during construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to respond to the emergency access piece, and I'm going to ask Mr. Daly to respond to the stormwater and regarding the petroleum line easement. On secondary emergency access, 2 points, we consulted with the fire marshal. And again, we had that roundtable with everyone in town staff, but we went back to the fire marshal, and I believe Ms. Calabrese went back to the fire marshal and other folks in town to confirm that what we have proposed here is appropriate for emergency access and that no additional or greater access is required by code. They confirmed it is not. I'll also note just in accordance with state law, emergency vehicles can drive, with good reason, can drive where they want to, when they want to, when responding to an emergency. So hypothetically speaking, and there's actually case law on this, if for some reason this were closed here and the fire truck, EMS, whoever it had to be, had to drive on the grass to get to the building, they're going to get to the building. So again, from staff's perspective, what we have shown here was appropriate and sufficient and met code. Now I'll turn it to Tom on the stormwater piece.
Even with 3 feet of snow on the ground, like drive the fire truck over the snow.
The snow is a different piece. Again,
Got the chief right here.
Sprinkler buildings.
oh, and they are sprinkler buildings, even more important. But yes, in terms of that, again, we confirmed with staff that this was appropriate before we came before the commission. Emergency access is not something we mess with because it never bodes well for us.
So for the record, Tom Daly, first of all, is the stormwater chambers. I've been using underground stormwater chambers for 30 years. They are proven. And I will say, we also have built best management practices upgrading of the stormwater chambers. So we have catch basins with deep sumps, and then we have a hydrodynamic separator before you even get to the chambers. So the reality is the maintenance occurs much upstream of those. The other thing is you'll notice on sheet GU1 is a full operation and maintenance plan for stormwater, not just the underground basins, the above ground basins, catch basins, sweeping, all that. That'll be part of, that's actually on your plans on the operation and maintenance plan. And I'll be the first to admit, and I think somebody said something about the detention basin, stormwater systems need to be maintained, and that will be part of the HOA or such. So long track record of underground chambers. Frankly, it's pretty standard practice on that. In terms of the petroleum easement, so as I started my presentation, there is a petroleum easement that runs right through here. It's not our line. It's my understanding it's actually abandoned. And we tried to work with the petroleum thing, say, hey, can we cross it? And it was just like, it was like talking to a brick wall. We just couldn't do it. The only thing we're doing in the area easement is a walking path. We're not
putting a foundation on the, okay.
Yeah, so here's the easement. And actually the utility company told us what the separation was. Not only did they have the easement, they told us we could only cross at 90 degrees. And that's why you actually see these trails going at 90. I know they probably meant more roads, but you were just crossing their pathway, 4 locations on that. But at this point, we also had to stay away from that. So, and as we indicated, we don't have basements. So we don't have deep excavations nearby. Any future maintenance or monitoring, that's all on the burden of the easement holder for that property. It's not part of our application.
You said abandoned, is it capped or just they're not flowing at this point?
I think it's not flowing is our understanding, but nobody wants to give up their easement. Oh, we may need it in the future because to be honest, when we were talking early planning, we actually had more development coming out into here and some parking. And then frankly, we just pulled the whole project because they were just not being cooperative. So we just stayed away from it.
All those pipes, they put a DC charge on those for stop the electrolysis from the pipes, and that jumps. That's why, what buffer do they give you around the easement?
I forget what the distance. 30. Yeah, something. Yeah.
And the charge will jump on electrical systems of buildings.
Was that what really?
That's why.
So yes, I think they said, hey, it's our easement, but you need to also stay farther away from it. from attorney standpoint, if you have an easement, you have an easement, but, so yeah, that's why, yeah. So the only thing, these are at grade little walking trails. That's the only thing. And be honest, that's not our original plan, but we had to pull back once we got guidance from them. We talked to them well before we even put pen to paper.
Just one more thing on site that constrained where
Yeah.
and what we could build. Wetlands, roadways, surrounding uses, and petroleum easement.
I'm gonna open up to online. Is there anyone online that would like to comment on this application? Would please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone, going twice. Okay.
I don't see where I can raise my hand. Can you
Oh,
hear
there we
me?
go. Okay. All right, sir. Could you please identify yourself for the record?
Richard Tuller, 412 Canyon Ridge Drive. I have 3 points. I'm concerned about traffic too, but I think it's been talked about enough. Sounds like it's mostly the state's concern. Second, I live 412 Canyon Ridge Drive. I live right up the road. I drive by here every day. I mean, I like the current abandoned agricultural aspect, but it's my understanding that this is where we want to encourage development. So if we're going to change the zoning anywhere in town, it seems like we would want to encourage it here. I think there's been several other comments on that. The third, maybe this is just for my own education. We get notices here at Canyon Ridge probably once a year of concerns about things being put into the sewer system. And I know they've already gotten the thumbs up from the WPCA. I see the chairman of the WPCA sitting in the front row. Concerns of things like certainly with a high density, like non-flushable, flushable wipes being put into the system. It's my understanding here in our high density area that there's some sort of intermediate step that prevents that from being put into the main sewer system. Is there some sort of intermediate step here that controls that sort of thing?
For the record, Tom Daly, there currently is not anything. What we've done on other projects is provide education. So in the apartments, they have a little education on the door, or when you become to rent, that certain things shouldn't be flushed down the drain. But in terms of the sewer system itself, it's a traditional system. We hadn't put any of those provisions in place. I'm not aware of any provisions you can do in a sewer system it's really more of an education. Just as you said, you get a flyer, that same thing could occur with the residents here.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the extent these flyers are coming from the town, I don't know if they are, but if they're coming from the town, Mr. Chairman of WPCA, if they're coming from the town, presumably they would also go to our residents if education is a concern. I'm just not sure where these notices are coming from.
I have no knowledge. I've never received one, so I don't know if why that area that would receive something like that.
We get them from our leasing office.
So it's
internal.
It's an internal. Okay.
I mean, if the commission would feel more comfortable, we could circulate put some type of educational placard on some common area, or ensure that it's part of like the rental agreement or the, HOA booklet, if you will, not the legal documents, because that really doesn't have a place in the declaration, but, anything like that, if that makes the commission more comfortable.
Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else online that would like to comment? Not seeing any. Anyone on the commission still have any additional questions? Ann?
Can I ask about the bypass lane concept? If DOT were to be amenable or require a bypass lane, which sounds like it might be a help, would that require road widening? And if so, would that, you have sidewalk and trees on your side and you have abutters on the other side, whose property would the widening occur on?
It would, for the record, Tom Daly, it would have to be in the state right away. We would never be able to encroach onto anybody else's property.
There's state right away on both sides of the
Correct.
road.
Correct. So it would,
The road loses to
well,
their front.
well, typically it would go on this side of the road. Because as the neighbor indicated, when you're trying to take a left into your driveway, it stacks up. So what happens is you build a little more shoulder than if anybody's turning left into here, you're able to scoot by.
Would another way to do it be to widen the road on your side and then
And you're looking at the center line of this road. So
And-
you're gonna make the traffic do this.
The alignment doesn't really do it. I'll be honest, we're doing the same exact project on same exact thing on Route 4 in Farmington. We're doing a little strip widening on it. And when I say, a widening, many times it could be 18 inches. I mean, just enough. It's not, no, it's not. No.
It's not a dedicated turn.
It's basically you're given an enlarged shoulder. And everything. So, and everything. So what we're doing in Farmington is we're just actually adding about 18 inches on the side of Route 4. Same as that condition, taking a left in and then you scoot by.
Within the state road.
But it will not be like a whole lane where you're scooting by. It's just a bigger shoulder, but we would have to stay. And so those are the things we have to talk to the town or this DOT will consider. Would that widening have a negative impact on the neighbor across the street? We can't do that.
Right.
Is it done in the right? Because we're sitting here talking about this.
Somebody's front yard.
Yeah, exactly. So we're sitting here talking holistically on ourselves, but the DOT will, and that's why this application, because the DOT will look at more of a bigger picture on it. And so these contexts we're talking about is, to be honest, we haven't studied it.
The DOT ask the neighbor how they feel about and what it does to them to lose
Well, they'll,
their yard?
well, it won't be their yard. It'll have to be in right of ways.
Here, they don't ask anybody.
Yeah, there's,
They want.
State's land.
It's their
I
plan.
don't know, I'd feel pretty bad to lose a chunk of my
Yeah,
front.
from the curb line to the property line, we have about 25 feet on this side. I would anticipate it would also be 25 feet. I mean, typical way is 50 feet, right? So I think the reality is, though, we have to look at the context. We could never do anything to have a negative impact on a driveway on the other side of the street. The reality is, I think, as Andre indicated, this town has determined in the POCD that this is well suited for development. There is no such development that doesn't generate traffic. And I don't think there's anybody in the entire town would say they're happy with the amount of traffic that's on their road. I can talk to it. What we're trying to tell you is we have right-sized the project. And the other thing is we've done a very detailed study. As you saw from Neil, we didn't just do the intersection. We took it all the way down to 91. And I understand the neighbors saying, this is an important corridor. It's a busy corridor. But the reality is if the town wants to follow their POCD and get development, it has to have. Now, if this was office building, the traffic on a peak hour would be substantially different. But residential is actually quite good in the peak hour. And I think we've struck the balance. But I think you can be rest assured, as Andre, we studied all the intersections for a very long distance. And it's our opinion from a traffic standpoint that we've met the standard. And based upon our ability to develop this property, we have caused no so significant impacts. Really, the OSTA is just another level. You can be rest assured that somebody else is going to be taking a hard look at it. That being said, OSTA is not really in the process of stopping or denying projects. They're in the process, or their philosophy is they want to make it better. It's their road. They want to do that. So these timing changes that Neil, we actually have had a lot of success there. I'm working with Neil on another job. We're doing striping changes on a road to like do something. That's where you're typically seeing these kind of light touches. DOT, frankly, doesn't like traffic signals, right? They're just not, that's not something they're not in the business of adding more because they own it and maintain it at that point.
Well, they do?
Yeah. Yeah, it would not be, there's no such thing as a private traffic signal. That's a thing. There's a as Neil indicated, very complex calculation.
Don't they make people retime them and reprogram them?
No, we make recommendations. We can't go in there and change their timing signals. No, it's essentially we're kind of They kind of set it and forget it and everything. So they've been quite, actually, we're doing so many OSTA permits right now. We have a relationship with them, and I think they somewhat appreciate the fact that, hey, that we're getting a free consultant to kind of get in there and noodle with these lights a little bit. It's really, we're trying to optimize those lights at the greatest extent. And as you know, traffic signals, traffic patterns change. And once again, they just kind of set it the first time and it doesn't evolve. So by Neil doing that detailed, he was able to get really into the numbers. So these are standard procedures. I don't want this commission to go away thinking that there's gonna be a traffic signal out there, or there's gonna be a 10-foot road widening. At this point, as Andre is saying, from a professional standpoint, from a professional engineer, the project stands on its own. But rest assured, we have to go through another process, and you're gonna have some real experts taking a look at this.
He's got a couple Fs in a couple places.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that document you see, that will go to OSTA. They will get a copy of that traffic signal.
Hopefully
and
work on improvement.
Sorry, the traffic report will go to OSTA. We actually have to give them a drainage report. And the way the law says is you're not supposed to get a building permit until you receive OSTA approval.
Right.
So it's not like your job gets half done, right? You have to get this resolved. The improvements have to be done by the time you get a CO, but you're not supposed to even get a building permit. So that's taken, and also, it's also not goes to OSTA, it also goes to the local district. So you're getting two sets of eyes on that.
And Mr. Chairman, just one more point on traffic, just piggybacking on what Tom said. I'm looking at the permitted use table. Keep in mind that the underlying zone for this property is B3, and I'm looking at the list of permitted uses on site. Now, all of them are SUP, right? They're special use permits, which means that the commission has decided that it is an appropriate use for the site generally, subject to site-by-site evaluation and conditions to mitigate impacts. But again, you're not going to get development without some type of traffic impact. The point is ensuring it doesn't adversely impact, or it can be mitigated in other ways. But if you look at the uses here, I mean, you have retail establishments of up to 30,000 square feet. You have a number of other retail and commercial uses, office, general and professional, medical and dental, so on and so forth, all of which, again, not the traffic engineer, but I've always understood that those uses are higher traffic generators than what we're proposing here. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay. Anyone else? Just for the record, I mean, we've kind of combined two applications, but I just want to kind of circle back to the underlying, zone change, the planned commercial development. Section 817 of our regs specifically lays out the planned commercial development district and names specifically, the Route 5 and then 140 corridors as the prime locations to have these planned commercial developments. So just I read through the whole section, and this application is in compliance with what is required of a planned commercial development.
So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I guess my question to the commission through you is what the commission is inclined to do. Is it inclined, and certainly I'm not demanding a vote, but I'm saying, is it inclined to close the public hearing? And the only reason I ask is I would like to provide closing comments, but I'm not going to trip over myself and provide them if we're just going to continue the hearing. So that was the reason for my ask.
Well, since there's no one else on the commission that has a question, there's no one from the audience that has another question. At this point, we would normally close the public hearing. So unless anyone has any further questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Can I just make a couple closing comments? That was the one caveat.
Okay,
Sorry.
I thought you wanted to make your.
I'm going to read the room, go quickly, but I promise I
Okay,
do have to say a couple things. That's why I was asking.
I thought you wanted to make your comments after the public hearing closed.
Not allowed to. I would love to make comments after the public hearing closes, but I'm not allowed to. It's not permissible. I don't want Mike and Ruth a heart attack. Okay, so again, I want to start off by where I end where I started, which is a thank you to town staff and just generally to the town. What the commission sees in these plans was a labor of love over many, many months of back and forth with staff, not only Ruth and Mike, but Danielle on the wetland side, the town engineer, so on and so forth. So a big thank you to staff to helping us navigate that process. Our goal is always to get to a public hearing, and even better if we can get there before the public hearing opens like we did tonight with staff's blessing. And we got that. So that's where we always want to be ideally. I'm going to start with the PCD and Commissioner Gobin, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. You asked me to start with the PCD regulation to talk about the vision, but I was looking earlier at the actual, the purpose, 817.1, which is to encourage well-designed, diverse development and uses that will help support existing neighborhood businesses, act as anchors and employment hubs within identified commercial nodes, and create increased diversity within the town's grand list. One of the biggest things we see throughout the state, and there was a comment actually that we don't need more housing. Actually, the state is anticipating we need somewhere in the range of 140 to 150,000 additional housing units within the state of Connecticut. And some numbers are even higher. I'm sure Mike has seen higher numbers than even that. So when the biggest complaint we're seeing from towns is, if you don't build where they can live, you're not going to be able to build the commercial and the retail and the other types of developments, and vice versa. You need both. And what this site, I believe, is accomplishing is providing that housing choice, that housing diversity in an area that calls for this specific type of use. And then, of course, talking about reserving that piece along the frontage for a future commercial development in accordance with the regulations. We already spoke about the vision, talking about flexibility in site planning, high quality site design, and robust environmental protection standards. I won't hit on those again. But I just want to note, we have a couple of, I said hole-in-one earlier. I'm not a golfer, so I'm totally speaking out of turn. But we have a plan that's appropriately located along a key commercial corridor on land that to date has been sitting vacant for a number of years, as I understand it. It's not being put to a productive use. And we are, in accordance with the town's own POCD, actually proposing a plan that furthers the POCD goals. Smart site design, zoning regulation compliant buildings, code compliant buildings, and other site improvements that comply with the relevant regulations and standards, sensitive and attractive landscaping and architecture throughout the site, so on and so forth. Again, I don't want to discount, I don't want this to be buried, the significant public benefit to this very lengthy extension of the public water main along North Road. That is going to be a time-consuming and costly endeavor that the applicant is undertaking. I don't want that to be lost in translation, because that is a big piece of this proposal. And as I believe, I don't know if it was Mr. Anderson or someone else said, a lot of money was spent on sewer. Don't have water. How are we going to get development without the water? So I think this furthers that goal and that future path forward. And then, of course, we keep coming back to the POCD. As I mentioned, it's advisory only, but it's still important here, particularly when you have a regulation that is really modeled after trying to further this goal in the POCD of developing this important commercial corridor. We listed in our January letter a number of reasons for approval that talk about the POCD, expanding housing opportunities and design choices, concentrating development around transportation nodes, including North Road, balancing development with conserving and restoring the natural environment. I think we heard something along the lines of only 15 or 17% of the site is actually being developed. The rest of it is remaining untouched. And a significant portion of that will be in a conservation restriction following the wetlands. That was staff's request that we okayed and confirmed earlier today. And then, of course, residential uses along the northern business corridor. For what it's worth, again, this is a zone change first, but we're also talking special permit with site plan. So being the lawyer, I know everyone's rolling their heads. I had to look at the special permit criteria as well. I'm not going to go line by line, but the criteria in section 701 talks about in harmony with the area. This is a residential use, and there are nearby residential uses, but I think it's a transitional area, which is exactly why I presume the town has called for this type of development in its POCD, talking about adequate access, adequate infrastructure, natural resource conservation, compatible design, public health, safety, and welfare, residential impact, traffic impacts, and then ultimately just general cohesiveness with the area. And I think we've hit all of those nails on the head. I'm not going to go through them in detail because we've touched on them during the presentation. But from our perspective, we've proposed a zoning compliant plan that is in line with the town's POCD and just plain old smart development. With that, we'd request the commission's approval. And again, thank you for its time.
Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close both public hearings. PZ 2026-1. The applicant owner is North Winkler Winkler East Windsor LLC for a zone map change from B3 to PCD, located at 173 North Road and map 125, block 25, lot 1B, and to close the public hearing on PZ 2026-2. Same applicant owner, North Winkler East Windsor LLC, requesting a special use permit with site plan review for a proposed multifamily development with 4 apartment buildings and 8 rows of townhomes, associated parking and stormwater improvements located at 173 North Road, map 125, block lot 1B.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearings. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, the public hearings are closed. Anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss before we call for a vote? We'll
One thing.
procedure, yeah.
Price point on the condos.
Can't
Oh,
ask them
sorry,
any
I was
more
right.
questions. We cannot ask them questions. It's just from us.
No,
I have a question for you and Ruth Ann. I'm fine with the draft motion for the zone change. Heard in the conversation, the potential that we might want to add a construction logistics plan with construction at a pre-construction meeting. If you feel the need, I'm wondering if you want to add a 4F in the draft for that. And we also had discussion on a snow removal condition. And I'm wondering if that's part of condition 10 or that's a new condition we need to add, or we're comfortable with everything and don't need to put those 2 items.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant, and I'll give you my personal opinion, the applicant
Just want to add.
showed their snow locations on the map. If they really don't follow that, it's not gonna hurt anybody but the residents. So
Right.
it's gonna be really the residents that are going to complain.
Works out. too.
But having said that, it's probably a good idea that they put it in their operating plan, how they're gonna deal with snow. But
So
I
the
think,
staff want to make an edit to
Okay.
for that
well,
in number 10, or do you want to just?
you traditionally have a,
If we were to make a motion, would I?
yeah, I understand. It just, yeah, I guess it was discussed and kind of believed that there should be some type of phasing or coordination as to how they're going to operate while they're construction thing. Is that
Would you want-
common practice that
No.
present that to you, or is it something we need to add into here to compel them to do that?
I don't think it goes with revising the plan. I mean, is that, because it was a snow removal comment and then,
When it came to saying that they are planning on building and renting out at the same time, you traditionally have some type of a plan as to how they're going to, a sequence plan.
Sequencing and how they're not going to disrupt the residents by running trucks over their
it's a
parking
very
spaces.
familiar conversation to the recent application, the first application under this regulation.
Right, but they proposed a construction access point
they-
that was completely separate of the residential. This,
Different
when they're
road.
not proposing that, so there's gonna need to be a little high level of planning as to how you're not going to interfere with residents and construction vehicles. And then any other issues that may come up with,
So you
with
want
tracking or anything, like that, just that they should have some
a
type of.
pre-construction meeting is
Yeah,
what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is there a place where you want
Read.
it inserted?
Sure.
What I typed, so, prior to the commencement of construction, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting and provide a construction sequencing plan to town staff for review.
Perfect.
And that's number 19.
You want to make that number 19?
General condition.
Okay, can you say it slow, Mike? It's like write it down or print it. Or give me.
Could have said it's
Parade.
7:30, but not at 9:45. Prior to the commencement of construction, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction.
Yeah, I got prior to commencement.
Of construction,
Of construction,
comma.
I'm an applicant.
The applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting and provide a construction sequencing plan to town staff for review and approval.
I'll participate in pre-construction meeting
And provide a construction sequencing plan to town staff for review and approval.
Okay.
All good?
I'm good.
Okay, so when we start off with the first application, PZ 2026-01 for the zone change request, we have a motion on that application?
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve PZ 2026-1, a zone change request for owner applicant North Winkler East Windsor LLC for a property at 173 North Road, East Windsor. I guess map 125, block 25-1, or lot 1, and a portion of map 125, block 25, lot 1B, from B3 to PCD as depicted on plans entitled Zone Change Map, Proposed Multifamily Development, 173 North Road and Mullen Road, lots 125-25-1 and 125-25-1B, East Windsor, Connecticut, prepared by SLR Consulting, dated December 30th, 2025, revised February 3rd, 2026, finding the parcel satisfies the eligibility requirements of section 817.3, as it is greater than 4 acres in size and is in the northern business corridor as shown on the future land use plan in the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development. The condition being this approval and the above referenced plans with the written description of the subject parcels shall be filed on the East Windsor land records. The effective date of this zone change will be after filing with the town clerk and publication of the decision in the Journal Inquirer.
We have a motion to approve the application. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Second by Wayne. Any further discussion?
I think they did a very good job with their plan.
Yes. Okay, hearing no further, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Okay, you have your zone change. Okay. Ready, I'll entertain a motion on application PZ 2026 for the special use permit.
I'll make a motion based on the draft motion dated 2/24/2026 to approve the applicant's request for a reduction to the landscape buffer required by section. Oh, we have to do the landscape buffer as a section. That's how this is written. Do you want me to make two motions?
So there's two motions there.
Okay, okay, Mike,
Okay,
I'll proceed then. So to approve the applicant's request,
just as clear, this is a motion to approve the reduction in the landscape buffer.
yes. So my motion is to approve the applicant's request for a reduction to the landscape buffer required by section 600.2 to 25 feet by providing 6-foot-high solid fencing and dense planting.
Okay, we have a motion to reduce the landscape buffer. Do we have a second? Second by Wayne. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you have your landscape buffer reduction. Okay, now take a motion on the special use permit.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve PZ 2026-2, a special use permit with site plan review. The owner applicant is North Winkler EW LLC to establish a planned commercial development at 173 North Road, lots 125-25-1 and 125-25-1B in East Windsor, Connecticut. The approval is granted subject to conformance with reference plans and support documents as may be modified by the commission in this approval, and the following conditions and modifications. The plan set is identified in this document dated 2/24/26, so I'm not going to read all the portions of the plans. The findings are the commission finds the applicant to be the application to be complete and that all information necessary to act on the application has been submitted. 2, the detailed development plan is in general conformance with the master concept plan. And 3, the development was approved by the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency on December 3rd, 2025. There are 19 conditions. The first 4 are conditions which must be met prior to signing of final Mylars. 1, a paper copy of the final approved plans.
Yeah, I don't think you need to read this entire document. Just.
After the last minutes, that's
Just-
3 per night.
1 through 18 and that's.
Okay, there is 18 conditions. And we are adding a 19. It says prior to commencement of construction, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting and provide a construction sequencing plan for town staff review and approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the special use permit. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, you have your approval.
All this stuff, go to recycling.
Okay. We're excited about this. Very nice.
Get a pretty good job. Oh, yeah, I tried. Perfect. On that. Where they do it in your yard.
Okay.
So you're playing for 30 years.
Excuse me, if you don't mind, we still have more things in our meeting to conduct. Gentlemen, We still have more items on our meeting.
You don't get to leave yet.
All right. We have no old business, no new business. Under other business, we have a discussion on the P O C D. We have nothing. Just a place marker that saying to be continued. Next item is our ZEO report. ZEO report,
Yeah,
looks like we've made
pretty
very good progress. We're all getting tired. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're down to 2 pages.
Everybody decided to comply with zoning for their New Year's resolution.
Excellent.
Looking for sheds.
Does anybody have any specific questions on any of these items, or just you can review at your leisure? Okay. Moving along, under correspondence. We have the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Commission 76th Annual Conference registration. That's the annual meeting at the AquaTurf. So I guess I will attend.
2.
3, 4.
That's 4.
And then you'll have to check with Stacy if
Yeah.
she has attended in the past as well, so. It is on March 26th.
You don't.
I think you have until like the second week of March to decide.
I'll decide now. I'm
You
in.
going? All right, get rid of that question mark.
So it's just wait on stage.
So we just need to ask. Did
It seems
she go
good.
last year?
Yes.
She did go last year.
Yep.
I thought so.
We'd be all right.
Peer pressure.
No mind.
Isn't that why you didn't come?
Under our business meeting, discussion on CROG representation to the
Oh, yeah.
town of East Winters. So
I look,
I don't know if you're all aware that CROG holds, I think, their quarterly meetings. And every town is requested to have a representative and an alternate to these meetings. It's a Zoom meeting. It's done, I think, 7 o'clock, usually on a Thursday. Currently, Jim is our representative and I am the alternate on that. I guess I'll open it up as anybody would be interested in wanting to be a representative on this commission.
What, you want to steal our jobs? You can have.
Strictly want to know if anybody saying, yeah, I'd love to do this, you know?
My schedule puts me out of town for April and then I leave in September till Christmas. So
Like I said, it's once a quarter. It's a good,
They're virtual.
yeah.
it's got me
You
set.
can learn some good stuff
30.
from them.
It's nice. They do have a kind of a one session at the end of it where every town kind of gets to talk about things that are going on in their town. But as well, they usually have some type of a speaker that kind of talks about a certain topic. We had quite a bit of discussion on the fair housing proposals and all that stuff. So it's informative. It truly is. But
Place with no cars.
yeah. I mean, there's some wild conceptual, there were developments out there that had literally no parking at all,
No cars.
that were located near transit. And I imagine,
Yeah.
I'm sitting, if you go to New York City, you have very similar too.
New Haven, right by the parking garage.
So it was just to,
I can see
it
the
was just kind of to say, hey, you know what? It could work.
places.
If there's a right spot for it, it could work.
Windsor
I
Lock
mean,
train station.
that Montgomery, I mean, they have parking there, but they really,
The grocery store right there, across the wall where Burreel is. You put in a Trader Joe's right there.
Jimmy, you want to continue as our representative?
So what, you want to be
No,
representative of the office?
doesn't matter. We both.
Yeah, I know we both
attend
attend them anyways.
On this.
Okay. Okay, then, pardon, Wayne, you.
You want to do it, Wayne?
What?
Oh, you want me in?
I nominate Jim.
So you raise your hand, you already wrote your name down. Okay,
Me and Mike will keep doing it.
I'll,
They're interesting meetings.
sure.
They're long.
All right,
Okay.
They're okay.
the same.
Yeah.
No, they had.
They
him more.
More on it, so you need to update the list.
Yeah.
Okay. No need for an executive session, so does anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about?
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
I second that.
Second by Wayne. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 10 o'clock even.
Jeez. That's been a long time. 10.
Just reminded me of the first meeting I went to. Long time ago.